Legislative Center. There we are. The link for that website is included at the top of today's agenda. I will love to introduce our first Vice Chair, Shaquana Taylor, to go over our housekeeping rules.
Good morning. The housekeeping rules are as follows. Please use your video at all times to ensure quorum. Please keep your microphones muted and only unmute when addressing the board. Please use the hand-raising function when you wish to be recognized. Keep this function active until you're called upon. This is for these individuals attending virtually also. Please avoid using the chat function. Please make sure you're visible on screen in a bright location. If you lose connection, please close your Teams window and restart Teams from the calendar invite. For those attending in person, please raise your hand when you would like to be recognized. Please make sure to keep your microphones turned off until you're called upon to speak. Please turn your microphones off once you are done speaking. Should you choose to have the Teams meeting open on your device, please make sure to mute your microphone and turn the speakers all the way down. And for all supervisors, please, please, please maintain a sense of decorum during floor debate on all items throughout today's meeting. Under our rules, supervisors should ask the chair for permission to exit the meeting under a point of personal privilege. Note Milwaukee Governing Ordinance Sections 1.16. These are your housekeeping rules.
Thank you, First Vice Chair Taylor. Thank you, First Vice Chair Taylor. The first order of business is the call of the roll, and today is a big day for Milwaukee County, the Board of Supervisors, and our residents. Attention to today's proceedings is heightened because we are scheduled to vote on a matter so significant that we held 3 committees, one including all supervisors, to hear and listen from fiscal experts and the public. Given this attention, we have more guests here. We welcome you. Hello, so great to see you all. To support the public and press as they follow along, lifting that the item related to the 0.4% sales tax authorization is listed as number 8 on today's board agenda, which will take place after a short ceremony celebrating our parks. Typically, we aim to complete our agendas by noon, which may be possible. Given that, Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Supervisor Alexander.
Present.
Burgellis.
Present.
Clancy.
Here.
Cogs Jones.
Here.
Gomez Tom.
Present.
Johnson Jr.
Here.
Logsdon.
Present.
Martin.
Present.
Martinez.
Presente.
Rolland.
Here.
Shea.
Here.
Staskunas.
Here.
Sumner.
Here.
Taylor District 5.
Physically in attendance.
Taylor District 17.
Here.
Vincent.
Present.
Wasserman. Here. Madam Chairwoman.
Estoy aquí.
18 members present.
18 members present. Amazing. We have a quorum for the first time. Great. So I now invite our guests and the listening public to join our second Vice Chair, Shea, and leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a short reflection for what we're doing and why we're here to serve today.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Chairwoman, the next order of business is presentations by supervisors.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. This morning, we have the recognition of Park and Recreation Month, organizing by our Parks Chair, Supervisor Wasserman. This morning, we also have the opportunity to hear from Ms. Dee McCullum. There isn't a soul in the 10th District and probably here across the county that isn't connected to her in some way. Thank you, Dee, for providing a safe recreational space for our children, young adults, and families in Milwaukee at the MLK Junior Community Center, and taking time to speak to us today. So, Parks Chair Wasserman, I kick it over to you.
Thank you, Chairwoman. Today, first of all, I'm Sheldon Wasserman. I'm Chair of Parks and Culture Committee, and welcome to our chamber for all our guests and also our supervisors on this momentous day. Today, we're going to be making a decision about Milwaukee County, but first we must celebrate and recognize the Milwaukee County Park System. In July, Milwaukee County celebrates the Park and Recreation Month, and we are honored to recognize and acknowledge the hard work and dedication of numerous individuals and organizations working to preserve and uplift our county parks. The history of Milwaukee County parks goes back over 130 years to the 1890s. There have been many changes through the decades, but the mission of the Milwaukee County parks to create safer and accessible public spaces for citizens of Milwaukee County are to enjoy. Today, Milwaukee County maintains 153 parks and 15,700 acres of parks land. To tell us more about our incredible park system, we have a special video from Parks Director Guy Smith, who cannot be with us today, but we have a video for him.
Good morning, Madam Chairwoman, County Supervisors, and our viewing audience. It's my distinct honor to celebrate July as Milwaukee County's Park and Recreation Month. As many of you know, our park system consists of 153 parks in over 15,300 acres of parkland. We are a unique park system that consists of urban, suburban, and rural parks. We have a park or amenity that fits everyone's needs. We have aquatic centers, trails, golf courses, marinas, 2 community centers, a nature center, many miles of lake and river frontage, 112 playgrounds, green space, ball diamonds, basketball courts, Bernard Botanical Gardens, the domes, and so much more. I encourage all of you to get out of your comfort zone and visit a park today that you've never visited before. And how can you get involved in the parks movement? Make a donation to the Milwaukee Parks Foundation. Join a friends group. Volunteer. Go to countyparks.com to learn more. My parks team and I want to thank the County Board of Supervisors for your support over the years. You care about the quality of life of your residents. Today is a momentous occasion in which the County Board will take up the item of the local option sales tax for Milwaukee County. This new revenue generation will help sustain a park system which is an unmandated service today. I thank you again for your time. Go for a hike, go for a swim, grab your family and head to the beach, have a picnic, or go for a bike ride on the Oak Leaf Trail. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you in the parks.
Thank you, Director Smith, if you're listening. And now it's my pleasure to introduce Ms. Dee McCullum.
Oh, you're modest. Give me more, give me more, give me more. Just kidding. Good morning, beautiful people.
Good morning.
I am Ms. D. I serve as the director of the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Community Center, which is located at 1531 West Felice Street in the 10th District. I started my career with Milwaukee County over 17 years ago, right here, as a legislative assistant for then Supervisor Elizabeth Cox. So I'm extremely honored 17 plus years later to be standing up here addressing you as the director of the King Center in front of her daughter, history-making Supervisor Priscilla Cox Jones. So that is my honor today. Chairwoman, thank you so much for asking me to speak today. I'm honored. It's an honor to be representing the center in celebration of Parks and Recreation Month in Milwaukee County. King Park and the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Community Center is located on 21.3 acres, extending west from North 14th Street to North 17th Street and north from Juneau Avenue to West Vliet Street. It was named in the memory of the greatest civil rights leader of our times, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Acquisition of the park dates back to 1968 when then Milwaukee County Park Commission purchased the land from the City of Milwaukee Redevelopment Agency. The community center opens its doors to the public on June 6, 1976, and celebrates 55 years of service this year. It was designed then to provide healthcare facilities, adult recreation areas, a teen center, a child care center, and a theater with seating for 240-plus people, as well as a gymnasium, exercise rooms, a boxing facility. In 1986, 10 years later, an addition was made, which now houses the men weight room downstairs. The interior of the facility has remained the same, except for when I took over, the inside of the building kind of looked like a prison. We painted all the walls, so now it has some colors in our building. An example of this, the new things that was changing around the community back in the day, they did conversion of the tennis courts and made them into basketball courts in 1996. And in 1997, the Hmong Educational Advancement Association established an outreach office in the King Center. This was an initiative of former Supervisor Elizabeth Cox and the University Extension to reach out to the Hmong community to encourage participation in the Martin Luther King Center programming. Sometime later that year, a significant amount of hard surface adjacent to the main entrance of our building was removed and replaced with turf and a large flower bed. This enhancement was made possible due to the generosity of the park people founding the project. Fast forward, the center has had many partners, and today the center has several partners who still share the facility and call the King Center their home. We have the Parks Foundation, who's now in our building. We have Certified Boxing. We have Salim Karate Do. We have Summit Educational Association and Lorraine P. Carter Foundation. And we soon will be home to a theater organization teaching theater programming to children. We continue to grow and develop new partnerships. The boxing program was started by Al Moreland, and the karate program was started by Tawu Salim, and it has been in the center for over 50 years. Those two programs are still running strong. We have several major events each year that you all can participate in or send me your money so I can keep making them successful. January is the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. celebration in honor of Dr. King, showcasing Milwaukee's own talent. In July, we have the annual 4th of July talent show where kids perform and win money. That event is still sponsored by the city. We've had that for over 20 years. In August, we have the annual Back to School Festival, founded again by former Supervisor Elizabeth Cox, who was and still is a champion for parks, where over the years, the King Advisory Inc. Board and the King Center has given away over 100,000 book bags filled with school supplies to kids, not just in this community, but by our zip code area throughout Milwaukee, period. Followed by, we have the annual Make a Family Smile Thanksgiving event in November, which was started when I took over the King Center. I felt like we needed to do more, we needed to give back more, so I bought 10 baskets to give out to families. My buddy Mary Nelson at Aurora found out I was doing that. The next year she gave me 20 from Aurora. Well, then I had to buy 10 more, so I would have 20. We gave out 40. Then I became part of the diversity committee, and we made this county-wide. Now we give out over 2,500 turkeys every November. I love it. My staff, not so much, because they work really hard during that time. We end the year with the annual breakfast with Santa in honor of my son, Krishan, who served in the military, and we lost several years ago. Last year, over 300 kids received not one, not two, but 3 toys each. I partnered with Milwaukee Police Department, with the Sheriff's Department, and many other people. Chris Ailey has always been a big sponsor of the events that we do at the King Center. I'm very passionate about the King Center and everything we do. It will always be what's best for the community. It's not about me, it's not about my staff, but it's about what's best for the community. My life's mission has always been and will continue to be service to others, and the center allows me to have that platform. I encourage each of you, I ask each of you to pop up at the center and take a tour. I can stand here all day and tell you about the center, but until you've walked in and allowed one of them kids to touch your soul, you'll never understand the power of that community center and where it stands. We're benefiting now. I thank God for the Bucks Center down the street, but because they're down there, everything west of them is getting some updates, so I love the Bucks for that reason. Today, the board is honoring parks, friend groups, recreation facilities, and nonprofit organizations. Supervisors will recognize the critical role that our park system plays in our communities, along with staff and partners who work hard to maintain our green spaces. Congratulations to all of you all that's receiving citations today. Thank you for your hard work, and come to the King Center and check us out. Thank you.
Ms. Dee, if you could just hold on for 1 second. I know you have been recognized by our board many times, and I don't think there's any recognition that can encompass what you mean to our community, but on behalf of my office and the Board of Supervisors, I want to award this certificate of recognition for all you do, continue to do, and will do as director of the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. King Center. Thank you so much for all you do. Totally.
Yeah, your turn.
We gotta keep this program moving. You know what's ahead. So, but I do want everybody to hear the call from the Martin Luther King director, McCallum. I went to the center. It's really a unique center where you see people enjoying themselves, learning about themselves and learning about our community and learning specific skills that can really be life-saving. So take a tour. It really is something unique, and I was really honored to go. Next up is we're going to start the presentations of citations. I'm going to be calling up various people, various supervisors, but I'm also going to be calling up today two very special groups, the Park People and Lake Park Friends. And I'm very honored to bring them up today, and but we'll call up one group at a time. Actually, the Park People, represented by Dana Hansen, if you'd like to come up first. Welcome, Dana, and as you come up to the front, and you can come right up on the side here, the Park People are a group, and I'll say we have a resolution, but I'll read part of the resolution. Whereas the Park People believe that public parks enrich our lives and communities, and their programs engage citizens, businesses, and corporations in revitalizing and utilizing Milwaukee County's storied park system through voluntary efforts. Whereas the Park People's mission is to cultivate volunteer activities, focusing on grassroots efforts of friends groups consisting of citizens dedicated to their local parks. And whereas the Parks People extend their authority as a legal nonprofit to friends group who otherwise would not have the resources to apply for the status, providing protection for monies raised from fundraising efforts, insurance coverage, program assistance, supplies, expertise, and hands-on participation. And whereas the Park People have supported more than 50 friends groups over 40-plus years, with several sponsor groups forming independent nonprofit organizations, including Friends of Berner Botanical Gardens and the Friends of Ware Nature Center. Be it resolved that the members of the Milwaukee County Board of Supervisors, on the motion of myself, along with Supervisors Peter Burgellis, Ryan Clancy, Priscilla Cogs-Jones, Caroline Gomez-Tom, Willie Johnson Jr., Peggy Logston, Felicia Martin, Juan Miguel Martinez, Sean Rowland, Steve Shea, Liz Sumner, Saquana Taylor, Steve F. Taylor, Kathy Vincent, and Chairwoman Marcelia Nicholson do hereby commend the park people for their dedicated efforts and contributions to the community, and wish them prosperity, happiness, and continued success in all their personal and professional endeavors. Thank you. On behalf of the County Board, thank you for all the things you do. Next up, I have the honor of calling up the Lake Park Friends. Lake Park Friends, I live down the street from them. I've been a part of the community for years, and we're very honored to have the president and the executive staff, Ann Hamilton and Ann Woolmeyer. Thank you for coming today. Who are the Lake Park Friends, and what is the Lake Park's mission? Is to promote the preservation and enjoyment of Lake Park, sponsor educational, recreational, cultural events in the park, and raise funds for its restoration and enhancement in the spirit of Frederick Law Olmsted, the eminent landscape architect who designed the park. Whereas the Lake Park History Committee offers parks, tours, annual lectures, and events focused on Olmsted's legacies throughout the year, Lake Park Friends recognizes the park maintenance as a year-round activity, organizing numerous volunteers in every season to weed, remove invasive species, maintain trails, and plant hundreds of trees. And whereas Lake Park has raised more than $3 million since the establishment, nearly all of which has been devoted to parks maintenance and enhancements throughout the dedication of one part-time staff, Ann Woolmeyer, and hundreds of volunteers. Now and therefore be resolved that the County Board of Supervisors thank them for all their work and energy and efforts and just being who they are. So on behalf of our board, we want to thank you today and congratulations, and we want to recognize you. And here's a plaque with all the names of all the supervisors and our chairwomen. At this time, we're going to be calling out other supervisors recognizing their own group's members. And the first supervisor we're going to be calling up is Supervisor Patty Logston.
Thank you. I have the privilege in my district, which is District 9, of having a stellar park in my district, and that is Whitnell Park, which features Bonnier Botanical Gardens. Since the Friends of Bonnier Botanical Gardens was established in the 1980s, they had done tremendous work. By working with Milwaukee County, they focus on preserving the historical gardens for students, adults, and family programming, and special events that also help to preserve and sustain the beauty of the gardens. The Friends Group began the first volunteer program in the gardens with over 26,000 hours donated from the community. Volunteers that kept Bonnier's Botanical Garden and Education Program, Visitor Center, everything involved at the park opened since 2003. And it's open all year round to the community. You can go there in the spring and see a beautiful garden of peonies. Let me tell you, they're not like your grandma's peonies. They are beautiful. Everything they do there is astronomical. They put their heart in their work. There are just so many notable accomplishments of the Friends of Bonnier Botanical Gardens. I hope that all of you join me at the gardens to visit that and bring along groups. There's a lot of children's groups from our our surrounding schools that come, adults, groups of every nature that want to get out and enjoy nature. So I encourage you to get out there and see what they do, to see what those volunteers do working together to make this garden what it is. Thank you. Unfortunately, they could not send a representative today because they were busy planting more flowers. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Logston. Our next supervisor up will be Supervisor Kathy Vincent. Kathy, if you'd like to come up.
Good morning. I'm happy to say I have 7 parks out of the 150 parks in my District 11, which entails Greendale, most of Greenfield, and the southwest side of Milwaukee. The first park I want to mention today, and I will be recognizing both of these parks in their place of work this weekend. The first one that I would like to mention is Wedgwood Park. Many of you may or may not be aware of it, but it is a really awesome park that is buried right in the neighborhood of Wedgwood Drive. It's between Howard and Morgan. What I'm happy to say is that is the location where I raised my 2 children. So this park does have a very special place in my heart. It is a park where kids can go and feel safe and enjoy the outdoors. Families go there. There's an active wading pool. This Sunday, July 30th, I invite all of you here today to come to Wedgwood Park from 5 until 9. They will be hosting their annual National Night Out, where we will have several county entities there, including the Sheriff's Department, the Department of Aging, and so forth. But this is a wonderful park, and they will continue. The Friends Group continues to meet once a month on the second Tuesday of every month to strategize many different activities that they are so happy to host. Things like a nighttime trick-or-treat, which many of us maybe remember back in the day when you could go out at night and feel safe. This neighborhood is no exception to that. They also have an annual Easter egg hunt, as I said, the National Night Out, and just it's a wonderful place for families. So Wedgwood Park, the Friends of Wedgwood Park is the group that I'll be honoring at the National Night Out this Sunday. The second park I would like to talk about is the Whitnall Park Beer Garden. As Supervisor Logston said, we both share Whitnall Park. It's in both of our districts. This past year, Whitnall Park opened its revitalized beer garden area. There's more parking, there's better lighting, just better facilities in general. And the people there work so hard. It's such a positive place for families to go. I'm a dog person. I will tell you that this is a place where you can take dogs, children, seniors through children are all found at this park. So both of these parks are very special places in my district, and I will be happy to present them both with their citations this weekend when they're actively working in their parks. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Supervisor Kathy Vincent. Next up is Supervisor Ryan Clancy. He has some wonderful parks, and we can't wait to hear from you.
Thank you, Supervisor. And I do have many wonderful parks. I'm highlighting 2 of them today. The first one is the Friends of South Shore Park. I chose that one first because 11 years ago in July, I married my brilliant and amazing wife, Becky, in the pavilion in South Shore Park. I hope that she doesn't regret that decision. I certainly don't. And I wanted to draw attention to 3 individuals within the South Shore Parks Friends Group. And those are Melissa Benson, Emily Whitcomb, and E.B. Compton. About 2 years ago, they started the Fund Play Bayview campaign to raise funds to not just make some basic repairs to the South Shore Park playground, but to really transform that and replace it entirely. I'm pleased to report that that was successful. We did that through the budget process, and we'll break ground on that next year. But the amount of activity at South Shore Park from really everybody across the county, it is a destination for many folks, from the beer garden to the cleanups that they have there weekly is impressive. Like the next one, I'll be presenting this to them in the park. It's a great excuse to get out there. The second group is the Friends of Humboldt Park. And you may have heard of Chill on the Hill, which we have in Humboldt Park every Tuesday during the summer. You may not have heard of Jazz at the Vine, which takes place the last Thursday of every month, including tonight at 6 p.m. But the Friends of Humboldt Park also organized recently, in response to 2 tragic accidents within the park, some traffic calming measures, and I'm really grateful for their organization. They brought in me, they brought in other local leaders, and just a few months ago, with the cooperation and assistance of the Parks Department, we now have dedicated bike lanes, which has been a huge improvement there, has slowed traffic within that park, and really made it both bike and pedestrian safe. So I'm very grateful to both of those folks and looking forward to presenting them in the parks. Parks are places, but it's really friends groups like these that make them community. So I'm grateful to both of them. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Supervisor Clancy. Next up, we have the one and only Supervisor Felicia Martin, who will be speaking about her special park in her district.
Thank you, Chairman Wasserman. I really appreciate that. Well, I have several parks in my district. There's one that I wanted to highlight, and that park is, and the group is the Friends of Cooper's Park. They have, with their partners, a motto, which I think sums it up pretty well. Many hands make light the work. As we all know, Milwaukee County has faced many challenges, and one of those are our parks, where we don't have enough staff to maintain 157 parks. And so these friends groups are imperative to our continuing enjoying of our green spaces, what lends to the health of Milwaukee County. Everybody who knows me knows that I am a strong proponent for, in support of, and will go to the wall for good, solid, welcoming green spaces. And the Friends of Cooper Park exemplifies that in the work that they do there every day. They have several programs that are always active in the parks, and their aim, and I will quote directly, our aim is to bring neighbors and our neighborhood together to enhance and enjoy Cooper Park. They want to make certain that every single resident in Cooper Park has value added to their lives by these green spaces. We do cleanups. Yes, I go and I sweep the wading pools because everybody knows that children are my heart and my passion, and they need good, clean water and spaces to cool off during the summer months. They have a neighborhood rummage sale so that absolutely everybody can participate. And this way you get to know your neighbors even better. So because of their good work and their watching out for one another in Cooper's Park, I lift them up today and I say thank you for your work. And I encourage every other park that does not have a friends group to please give consideration to that and contact our Parks Department so that they can help you to establish a friends group. Oftentimes on the northwest side of Milwaukee in my District 7, I have constituents say, why can't our park look like X, Y, and Z? Friends groups is the reason why, or the lack thereof in our district, of why our parks don't look like other parks. And I thank Sister Dee for what she said. I love her. She probably doesn't remember me. I used to come, you do. I used to come to the King Center when I was a member of the board of the, can't even remember it now, Self-Development Center there, and to experience the youth coming up with confidence, asking, because I'm always getting lost, asking me if they could help me find where I need to go. So the work that you all do at the King Center in building confidence, not only confidence, but competence in our youth is incredible and it's amazing. Continue to do that good work. And the group was New Concept Self-Development Center. It's been so long. and they did good work alongside Miss D and her team there. And I want to say to you all, thank you, and to all the Friends groups, thank you for everything you do to make certain that there are green spaces that are clean, thriving, and beautiful with the flowers in our park system. Mental health is huge, especially coming out of COVID, and we're still in the midst of that pandemic, so remember, mask up when you can, that it will lend itself to helping us to have calmer, more stressless lives. And in our green spaces, we can commune with each other as well as nature and bring balance back. And may the force be with you all.
Thank you very much, Supervisor Martin, for your profound words. Next up is we have one of our newer members, the one and only Supervisor Cogs Jones.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, my name is Priscilla Cogs Jones, and I serve as your 13th District Representative. And I'm here today to highlight 3 individuals who have been working alongside with me for many, many years. See, I have a little story to share. My first job was with Milwaukee County Parks, and it was at actually the King Center very, 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 very long time ago. And then I worked for our lakefront, right? I was responsible for cutting the grass and emptying the trash can and picking up dog poop, right? Very proud of that. And that is what truly sparked my mission for my nonprofit organization. I believe that if we can change the way we view our community, we can change the minds of our community. And what happened with that is that I was fortunate enough with the redistricting to now have 9 parks in my district. And this summer I did a cleanup series where I did my very best to make it to all 9 parks and do my due diligence. But today we are here to highlight 3 individuals. And I would like for you all to come up, please. That is Mr. Cyrus Payne, Mr. Tawu Salim, and Miss Dominique Connor. So first, whereas Mr. Cyrus Payne joined the Milwaukee County in July of 2016 as a correctional officer with the Milwaukee County Sheriff's Office, demonstrating a deep commitment to public service. Mr. Cyrus Payne later became an instructor with Milwaukee County Sheriff's Office, excelling in his role and contributing to the development of future law enforcement and professionalism. Mr. Payne then transferred to Milwaukee County Parks in 2022, becoming a park ranger and embracing new opportunities. And whereas Mr. Cyrus Payne finds immense pride in being a part of Milwaukee County Parks Department as he wholeheartedly engaged in his responsibilities. Mr. Payne, with unwavering dedication to service throughout his tenure, has made a positive impact on Milwaukee County, exemplifying in his commitment to bettering the lives of others. And therefore, be it resolved, the members of the Milwaukee County Board of Supervisors, on the motion of myself, along with Supervisor Alexander, Clancy, Johnson Jr., Logsdon, Martin, Martinez, Rollin, Wasserman, Staskunas, Shea, Sumner, Supervisor Saquana Taylor, Supervisor Steve Taylor, Vincent, and Chairwoman Nicholson do hereby commend Mr. Cyrus Payne for his dedication and efforts and contributions to the community, and wish him prosperity, happiness, and continued success in all of his personal and professional endeavors. All right, next we have Mr. Tawu Salim. Now, a little story of this. Mr. Salim, I've watched him ever since I was a little girl. So remember, I started out at the King Center very, very young. And Mr. Salim was there instructing his karate class. I have grown to admire his dedication and his perseverance that he has left of an impression on all the children and adults, right, over the course of years. So here you go. Mr. Salim's journey with the Dr. Martin Luther King Center began in 1975, paying a membership a fee of just 10 cents. And whereas Mr. Tawus Salim's commitment and contributions to the King Center were officially recognized when he transitioned from volunteer fitness instructor to a paid employee. And Mr. Salim initiated Salim's Karate Do at the King Center in 1992 as his way of giving back to the community, aiming to work closely with young people from various parts of Milwaukee County to instill pride, discipline, and tolerance. And whereas Mr. Salim Karate's Do impact goes far beyond karate skills, as it warmly welcomes former students who have excelled in college graduated, and returned to assist current students. And whereas Mr. Salim's Karate Do is a cornerstone of the King Center, becoming the longest running program at the center, teaching children as young as 3 years old, and hosting the King Classic Tournament for an impressive 23 consecutive years. Y'all, let's give them some love for that. And whereas Mr. Tawus Salim's legacy of service and dedication continue to positively impact the Dr. Martin Luther King Community Center, the youth it serves, and the entire Milwaukee County. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the Milwaukee County Board of Supervisors, on the motion of myself, along with Alexander Clancy Johnson, Logsdon Martin, Miguel Martinez, Rollins Shea, Staskunis Sumner, Steve Taylor, Saquana Taylor, that's a lot. Kathleen Vincent Wasserman and Chairwoman Nicholson do hereby commend Tawus Salim for his dedication and efforts and contributions to the community, and wish him happiness and continued success in all of his personal and professional endeavors. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we saved the best for last. Ms. Dominique Connor. Ms. Dominique Connor has exemplified unwavering dedication and commitment throughout her remarkable career with the Dr. Martin Luther King Center, beginning as a Safe and Sound coordinator in May of 2001. And whereas Ms. Dominique Connor's tireless efforts and passions have been instrumental as the after-school coordinator and the food service program manager, creating an inviting and supportive atmosphere for all of those who she serves. And whereas Ms. Dominique Connor's journey reached new heights in 2010 when she assumed the esteemed role of lead office manager, a position she holds with the utmost pride and excellence. And whereas Ms. Dominique Connor's commitment to excellence shines through in her multifaceted responsibilities, be it assisting members, organizing files, managing invoices, maintaining member counts, scheduling or planning events. And whereas Ms. Dominique Connor's versatile talents and enthusiasm extend beyond her professional pursuits as she joyfully embraces her roles as a mother, decorator, baker, and event coordinator. So be it resolved on the members of myself and all the rest of you all, I'm not going to go through those names. We wish you the best of success, Dominique. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Supervisor Cogs-Jones. Next up, we have the one and only Chairwoman Marcelia Nicholson. But before we have her call up, I have to say the two of us have to arm wrestle Ken Lineback because we both really support him greatly in the Urban Ecology Center. Unfortunately, I lost. She's stronger than I am, but we're very fortunate to have the Chairwoman. It's introductions next.
Good morning. It is my pleasure to present the first citation for District 10 to Ken Lineback. Ken, if you could come up, as well as any urban ecology staff that is here with you today. Ken has such a bold presence in Milwaukee County, from his dedication to educating all on the importance of environmental sustainability to making outdoor experiences accessible to all, regardless of where they live. This year, Ken retired from the Urban Ecology Center after 25 years of service. So I'm going to read a bit off of his citation. And if you wanted to say a few words because you are retiring, I think it's only fair that we allow you to address the listening supervisors in public. So Ken began his career with the Urban Ecology Center in 1998 when the UEC, in its infancy, was recognized as a double-wide trailer in Riverside Park and now reaches 3 separate park locations in Washington Park, Riverside Park, and Menominee Valley with vast community centers. In his role as executive director, he's uplifted Milwaukee County residents by fostering growth and sustainable practices within the county's ecosystem through the facilitation of community workshops and revitalization projects. He has propelled not only the county's accessibility to nature, but also national visibility by authoring Urban Ecology, a natural way to transform kids, cities, parks, and the world, and founding the International Academy for Systems Change, an organization that works to inspire the transformation of social systems. Ken Leibach is respected for his dedication to a sustainable lifestyle, a life of adventure, community engagement, and commitment to societal wellness, and his desire to create a more sustainable world through method and practice. His steadfast commitment to the environment inspired his 25 years of service to the Milwaukee County Urban Ecology Center, as well as a lifelong commitment to sustainability. And I'll just add, in 2016, I was elected to the Milwaukee County Board of Supervisors, and I had the privilege of serving the Washington Park community. Mr. Ken Leibach has been an incredible supporter of not only myself and what I aim to do within our community, but the people that I seek to represent, no matter what they look like, no matter where they come from, no matter what language they speak. He has done so much for us. So I'm very thankful and grateful for you. Wish you so much success. And because everyone has co-sponsored this citation, I won't read names off, but we all wish you a future filled with health, happiness, and success.
Don't worry, I will be brief. But I also want to recognize Dennis Grudzinski, who's been on the board for the same 25 years that I've been with the Urban Ecology Center. So the two of us have really created the thing with many, many, many others. And I would be remiss not to actually just extend my gratitude to you all. I have observed, I've been here many, many times over those 25 years. I've observed the hard work and dedication that you as county supervisors do. And there is absolutely no way that the Milwaukee River Corridor and Riverside Park and the Rotary Centennial Arboretum and all of that work could have happened without you and as a partner. There's no way that the work that's been happened in Washington Park, where we're bringing tens of thousands of kids into the center, and we're about to groundbreak on a new and an improved center in August, thanks to the many, many years of working with Milwaukee County Parks and with you and the decisions that you have to make. And I've seen how you have to make decisions with very little information and very little time that affects the county, and there's a big decision that's going to happen today, I hope, in favor of county parks and the work that's happening there. But it's been a rewarding career working with the center. I also want to just share, I am not retiring, I am rechaptering, and my impetus to leave the center was actually because we had someone who was ready to lead, and it was time for that person to have that chance. And so this won't be the last of me and the work that's happening, because I love this county, I love this community, and it's pretty obvious why when you look around the room and you see the Martin Luther King Center and the park people and Burner Botanicals and all the other wonderful assets that this county has. But you are the leaders, and you need to be respected and honored for that. It's not an easy job, and I'm really grateful for all that you do. So thank you very much. This is really a nice honor. Appreciate it.
And I think Mr. Leinbach did an incredible job of talking about the Urban Ecology Center, which I will also like to recognize today. They have truly left their mark on Milwaukee. The UEC has taken it upon themselves to develop countless community development projects and expand their reach to tens and thousands of Milwaukee residents. This year, UEC has invested in the future of Washington Park by creating a newly renovated space for the community to gather and take advantage of all the park has to offer: canoeing, fishing, outside learning, healthy cooking workshops, and so much more. So on behalf of myself and the Milwaukee County Board of Supervisors, we would like to recognize the Urban Ecology Center, and we wish them a future filled with great happiness and success. Two more recognitions to go. I will actually like to call up both Rebecca Stoner and staff of the Milwaukee Parks Foundation, as well as Don Turnipseed, Friends of Sherman Park. If you could come forward. We are a family, so we've done lots of work together. We'll do this one as a group. Good morning. Don't look so nervous. Thank you so much. I would like to recognize Ms. Rebecca Stoner, the Milwaukee County Parks Foundation, as well as her staff for all the incredible work that they do. Rebecca started with the foundation as a volunteer. In her rise to the organization's first executive director, she has embarked on a mission of building up the Milwaukee park system by putting people first. Rebecca understands that our parks are more than green spaces. They are and can be a reflection and symbol of family, community, unity, and the inner spirit of a neighborhood. I'll read a few lines from her citation. Rebecca Stoner, ED, took an interest in community welfare through public access to Milwaukee County parks while volunteering. She's worked countless hours for the organization as an advocate and partner to further the mission to build a more vibrant and equitable park system. She has selflessly uplifted the Milwaukee County park system by advocating for additional resources, fundraising, raising awareness, building community capacity, and securing vital partnerships that allow our parks to thrive. I was so ecstatic to have Rebecca Stoner by my side at our first annual Harvest Fest, where she worked to help us get the funds that we needed to make that event possible, and also outreach to the community so they all felt that it was a place that they belonged. I consider Rebecca a friend, and I'm very proud that she's a part of our Milwaukee community. So thank you so much, Rebecca, for all that you do. And lastly, our Friends of Sherman Park was formed in 2021 by Don Turnipseed. That tells you anyone here can do this, right? Mabel Lamb in the SPCA, along with Mabel Lamb in the SPCA, and was assembled for the purpose of uplifting Sherman Park and its residents. The Friends of Sherman Park have presented the park neighborhood with special events and opportunities, demonstrating a commitment to maintaining the vibrancy of Sherman Park and supporting quality recreational activities for residents. Friends of Sherman Park actively use social media as a platform to communicate with the neighborhood and connect residents to information about upcoming events, news updates, grant opportunities, and job and housing resource fairs. The Friends of Sherman Park partnered with myself, as I mentioned, at the Harvest Fest, and they help showcase local businesses, public resources, and community enrichment. They have volunteered countless hours to their neighborhood by creating a fun, empowering public space for Milwaukee residents to play, learn, and live. We know Sherman Park has had its challenges, but this speaks to the testament of power of collective action and positive things that we can do to support our community. So Supervisor Martin, can you join us up here? And it is my honor to present this to Ms. Dawn. Thank you so much. I would be remiss if I didn't mention that Supervisor Martin served Sherman Park prior to redistricting and has done incredible work to lay a foundation I was able to build upon. So thank you so much, Supervisor. I would like to close today's Park and Rec ceremony by stressing the crucial nature of these public, non-mandated services. Our park system is vital to the well-being and wholeness of the communities we represent. They give Milwaukee residents places to convene, to unite, to uplift one another in a healthy and positive way. Our parks and rec facilities are the heart of our communities, and I am proud to have co-authored the measure along with my colleague Supervisor Wasserman that enabled us to celebrate our parks today. Our park system reaches far across communities in terms of the partnerships we have created. As we've seen today, our parks work collaboratively with grassroots organizations, friends groups, community centers, and many more. Without these partnerships and the involvement of Milwaukee residents, much of what we do in our parks would not be possible. These partners step up and prop up our parks where our resources are otherwise limited. So to those recognized today, thank you for your dedication to our parks and recreational facilities. And board, I ask that we continue to fight to protect them. Thank you so much, everyone. Now, if we have our clerk. Mr. Clerk?
Madam Chairwoman, the next order of business is presentations of petitions and communications.
We are on presentations of petitions and communications on page 2 of the digest. There is one item, item 1, file number 23-1 is summons and complaints. Supervisor Taylor, District 5, moves the July 27th listing of summons and complaints be received and placed on file. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. The July 27th listing of summons and complaints is received and placed on file.
Madam Chairwoman, the next order of business is notice of claims.
Located on page 3 of the digest, there's one item 23-2 is notice of claims. Supervisor Taylor, District 5, asks unanimous consent to suspend any and all rules interfering with consideration. Hearing no objection, rules are suspended. Supervisor Taylor moves disallowance. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed say no. The listing of notice of claims is disallowed.
Madam Chairwoman, the next order of business, files referred to standing committees.
Located on page 4 of the digest, one item 23-3 is files referred to standing committees. Supervisor Taylor, District 5, moves this listing be received and placed on file. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. The listing of files referred to standing committees is received and placed on file.
Madam Chairwoman, the next order of business is correction and approval of the Journal of Proceedings from Thursday, June 22nd, 2023.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Also on page 4 of the digest, item 4 is 23-4, Journal of Proceedings. Supervisor Taylor moves these be adopted. All those in favor of adopting the Journal of Proceedings say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. The June 22nd Journal of Proceedings is adopted.
Madam Chairwoman, the next order of business is reports of county officers, beginning with confirmation of appointments.
We are now on confirmation of appointments, page 5 of the digest. There are 2 items, 5 and 6. Any requests for separate action? Seeing none, the appointments will be taken in block. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
The question is confirmation. Supervisor Alexander.
Aye.
Burgellis.
Aye.
Clancy.
Aye.
Cox Jones.
Aye.
Gomez Tom.
Aye.
Johnson Jr. Logsden.
Aye.
Martin.
Aye.
Martinez.
Aye.
Rolland.
Aye.
Shea.
Aye.
Staskunas. Sumner.
Aye.
Taylor, District 5.
Aye.
Taylor, District 17.
Aye.
Vincent.
Aye.
Wasserman. Madam Chairwoman.
Aye.
18 ayes. 18 ayes, 0 noes.
18 ayes, 0 noes. The confirmations prevail.
Madam Chairwoman, the next order of business is resolutions and ordinances by and from standing committees, beginning with the Committee on Finance.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. We are now on the report of the Committee on Finance, beginning on page 6 of the digest. There are 14 items, 7 through 20. Please note items 8, 9, 10, 11, 13, and 14 require a two-thirds vote of members-elect. Item 7 requires suspension of the rules. Supervisor Sumner asks unanimous consent to suspend the rules. Is there objection? Hearing none, the rules are suspended. Any requests for separate action? Supervisor Clancy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Items 8, 13, and 14, please.
8, 13, and 14 have been called out for separate action. Any other requests for separate action? Any other requests for separate action? Going once, going twice? Mr. Clerk, please call the roll on the balance.
The question is adoption of the balance of the committee report. Supervisor Alexander.
Aye.
Burgellis.
Aye.
Clancy. Cox Jones.
Aye.
Gomez Tom.
Aye.
Johnson Jr. Logsdon.
Aye.
Martin.
Aye.
Martinez.
Aye.
Rolland.
Aye.
Shea. Aye. Stetskounis. Sumner.
Aye.
Taylor, District 5. Taylor, District 17.
Aye.
Vincent.
Aye.
Wasserman. Madam Chairwoman.
Aye.
18 ayes, 0 noes.
The balance is adopted. Mr. Clerk, item 8.
Item 8, file number 23-719, a resolution ordinance to amend Chapter 22, Sales and Use Taxes of the Milwaukee County Code of General Ordinances to enact an additional 0.4% county sales and use tax effective January 1st, 2024, to reduce the structural deficit and avert the fiscal cliff, and enroll new hires in the Wisconsin retirement system after December 31st, 2024, and close the employees' retirement system of the County of Milwaukee to new hires pursuant to 2023 Wisconsin Act 12. This item was recommended for adoption at committee. There are amendments pending.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Before debate begins, I ask that you as parliamentarian advise the body on a process question so we all have the same information. Can you let us know, and again, our Corporation Counsel is always here to advise as well, how many votes are needed to adopt number 8, and how are abstentions or absences counted?
Madam Chairwoman and members, per state statutes, the final vote tally necessary to adopt the sales tax is 12 members elect, and Wisconsin statute 77.70, paren 2, paren A is very clear on that. However, per .104 of your Chapter 1 rules, all questions shall be determined by a majority of supervisors present and voting. Therefore, any actions involving parliamentary procedure or other actions by the board are guided by that rule.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Clerk. I would like to pass the gavel on item 8, please.
The gavel has been officially passed. Supervisor Clancy. First, okay. Okay. So we're going to let Supervisor Nicholson speak on the resolution, then Supervisor Clancy. Is it not on? Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Board of Supervisors, for this opportunity to speak with you this morning. Over the past several weeks, all supervisors have had the chance to hear from fiscal experts, department heads, county employees, and constituents about the county's fiscal situation and the impact of Act 12. We heard how bleak the county's fiscal situation is and how our non-mandated services, like parks and transit, as well as human services, are threatened if we do not enact a solution. Simply put, revenues fund public services. Without revenue, we cannot fund public services. We also heard from the former board chair, Theo Lipscomb, about how the search and ask for solutions to the county's fiscal challenges has been long. In 2008, Milwaukee County voters approved an advisory referendum to enact a 1% sales tax to fund critical services. In 2018, while I was vice chair of the board, the Milwaukee County Board adopted the Fair Deal Resolution, establishing the Fair Deal for Milwaukee County Work Group and advocating for long-term fiscal stability through a solution that will work for Milwaukee County and the state of Wisconsin. I have been listening, not just as chairwoman, but as a supervisor. I have heard the same or similar communications throughout my years on the board. I too, since my early days as a supervisor, asked for a fair deal and tools that will allow us to raise much needed revenue and drive Milwaukee County forward. Here is a flyer dating back to 2018, where I held my first of many budget meetings and town halls on this issue. Still, after years and years of cutting close to bone in the budgets, we face a fiscal crisis that we will not avert without immediate action. The step we must take now is clear. It is up to us to take the once-in-a-generation opportunity available to Milwaukee County with the enactment of Act 12, advanced by the state legislature and signed by our great governor, Tony Evers. Today, I ask for your vote to adopt the resolution before you that contains the only solution available to preserve the vital services upon which our residents depend, the authorization of a temporary 0.4% sales and use tax for the county with closure of the county pension system and enrollment of new hires into the state retirement system. I remember as a new supervisor how it was nearly impossible to get a budget amendment that cost anything adopted. I felt grateful if I could get $10,000 allocated to a district project. Budgets were so tight that it felt as if the only option were to cut services and raise fees without option to invest in the services that constituents value. I remember the gut-wrenching votes I've had to take in the past, regardless of my ideological view, to cut services and raise fees to balance our budget as dictated by state law. I work and I lead to ensure you won't have to. The facts are clear. Milwaukee County structural deficit is anticipated to reach $109 million by 2028, and state-mandated services will grow to consume our entire local levy and are likely the first to be cut. Our non-state mandated services include parks and recreation, transit, public safety, and cultural venues, and let me say this another way. This means this body would have to slash more than $100 million worth of services across Milwaukee County. Many of you consider this a hard vote. I understand the uncertainty, the anxiety, and if you're new, the inability to wrap your head around the fact that we are absolutely in a fiscal crisis. But this is not the hardest vote. Cutting $100 million is a hard vote. Cutting our transit system right by route is hard. Shuttering county parks and recreational facilities like pools, our domes, gardens, or golf courses is hard. Selling off parks land is hard. Laying off hard-working county employees, that's hard. And explaining why senior centers and aging services are cut is hard. Let that sink in. This is not the hardest vote. As we all know, the situation we are in today isn't without years of significant reforms, efficiencies, and cost reductions. We have cut roughly $300 million in the past decade, reduced our workforce by nearly 4,000 Milwaukee employees since 2000, and reduced our physical footprint in the county by 3 million square feet. We can either go into financial crisis and deny ourselves local dollars that provide critical services our constituents rely on, or we can take advantage of a once-in-a-generation opportunity to invest in our communities. Opponents will say this is regressive. I say the Milwaukee County I want to live in thrives when we have that revenue to invest in it, and when we all have a stake in it, including those who visit us from other counties, states, or countries. Right now, with the tools we have available, those who visit get the luxury of our services without having to help maintain them. This funding source rectifies that, and 30% of our projected revenue will come from non-Milwaukee residents. As chairwoman of this board, and as a proud Milwaukee County resident, failure is simply not an option in my mind. Please reflect on this. If you can't cast a vote to protect Milwaukee County services for the residents who elected us to do, the very work we are supposed to do, how do we justify being here? Madam Chair, I would be remiss if I didn't touch on a few other things. During discussions surrounding this proposal, I have heard a lot of references to leadership, with that term said almost spat out with disparagement to a point where the language feels coded. As the first Black woman and Latina elected to chair this body, I am proud to stand alongside other leaders who support and work to advance this sales tax from our community that have been elected to serve. David Crowley, the first African American elected as Milwaukee County Executive. Cavalier Johnson, the first African American elected as Milwaukee Mayor. Jose Perez, the first Latino to hold the position of Common Council President. Congresswoman Gwen Moore, the first African American elected to Congress from Wisconsin. I have been reflecting on an article the Journal ran in 2020 about the elections to leadership during COVID of the county executive, then Common Council President Johnson and myself. And a lot of what us individuals who are rooted in the experiences of 53206 holds, our ability to lead will be scrutinized. I understand that people from historically exploited populations need and deserve allyship from those who are mired in privilege. And I stand by my assessment in that article that if someone has not lived and breathed poverty and discrimination, they cannot make related decisions to the full capacity. 3 years later, I expand that perspective, again, based on lived experience, to caution in policymaking for allies to paint all Black and brown people as poor or incarcerated or in need of salvation. It's a trope as plain as day. White, liberal ally tossed aside leadership by Black and brown people with lived experiences when their beliefs, methods, or individual voices, do not square with an agenda that they are advocating. Then follows the outdated trope to evoke the image of an angry Black woman who has lost her mind, as if our lived experiences and reflections are not reasoned and valid when our words and actions do not match what someone who has not walked in our shoes thinks we should say. I lift the report that the former board chairwoman, Marina Dmitrievich, who now is Alderwoman representing Bayview, shared. It's time, especially for white elected officials, to step back a little bit and create space for others to lead. Madam Chair, I reflect on my own quotes from the article I've referenced above. In 2020, I said, people of color are usually looked at as less capable than their white counterparts. And specifically as a Black woman, we are looked at as not assertive but angry. We are not looked at as collaborative but self-serving. And at every meeting, I have taken shots from so-called allies. I have been tagged in Facebook posts, sent vitriolic letters and emails, all referencing me as out of control, angry, power-hungry, and racist, because I understand my community is not a monolith. Because I know my community can speak for themselves, because I understand that, yes, we are poor and we are incarcerated, but we are also homeowners, teachers, social workers, medical advocates, business owners, wealth builders. We are chairwomen and county executives. And when these so-called allies stand to oppose this text today, remember which communities will suffer most if we don't adopt today and which will drive off in their Tesla. Many of you have reached out. You have asked me, do we have the votes? Will you be upset with me after all of this? But I'm here to remind you, you are the votes. You are the 17 individuals that I ask be bold and fight for the very services we are here to oversee and protect. The vote is bigger than me and my feelings about how you cast it. What's at stake are the needs of every resident you represent. Madam Chair, I have an amendment. My amendment is so straightforward, and it is co-sponsored so far by Supervisors Logsdon, Taylor 17, and Burgellis. I welcome you all to join as well. This asks the county executive and his administration to reduce the overall property tax levy, should this be adopted, that we increase funding for parks, transit, and other services countywide, that it provides a report in the matter provided under Wisconsin statutes containing detailed information on the county's expenditure plan for the 0.4% sales tax. That means, how are we going to spend this money? And then a plan to preserve county reserves and strategically use them to most effectively reduce the tax levy and fund capital infrastructure needs approved by the county board. Madam Chair, I move my amendment. I ask that you support this amendment. And once we have amended item 8, I ask that you join me in protecting the services our constituents have elected us to preserve. The vote is yes. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Supervisor Nicholson. There is an amendment on the floor, and it's already in click to my understanding, Christensen. I just want to make sure for the amendment. Yeah, we just ensuring that it was uploaded. It has. So the The question before the body, and I see several people standing up now, is the amendment by Supervisor Nicholson. So that is what is before the body. And as I saw people standing up, I was trying to write names. So you please charge it to my head, not my heart. If I take somebody first that wasn't up, I saw first Clancy, Martin, Alexander, Vincent, Rowland, and then Johnson Jr. Madam Chair. And Supervisor Sumner. And Cox Jones. I wrote it down, but within that order, in Supervisor Martinez. Do I have Supervisor Gomez? Gomez Thomas. I am looking again to ensure that I did not miss anybody, but we have the list. Supervisor Regalis. Yes, what is before the body is the amendment, so I want to make sure that we are all on the same page. It is also in your email, and it was uploaded onto Click. It is the amendment that is before us. Supervisor Clancy, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I'll keep the body of my comments for after the amendment is up or down. The amendment is fine, but it has no substance, right? It's asking politely that we do with these new dollars what we should have been doing for the last several decades, spending them on actual human needs rather than business as usual. So this is fine. I'll support this. I understand full well that the intent of this amendment is not substance. It's to provide cover for folks who may be looking at the upcoming real vote as a difficult one, and it should be a difficult one. I would propose that after we dispense with this amendment up or down, that we talk about a real plan and a substantive plan for what we do with these dollars before we pass the sales tax. So I'll wait until we're there. In support of the amendment, and intend to vote for it.
Thank you. Mr. Martin.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. I rise to say I'm in support of the amendment, and I would like to be added as the co-sponsor.
Supervisor Martin would like to be added as a co-sponsor. Hearing no objections, it is so. Supervisor Alexander, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. I also rise to request unanimous consent to be added as a co-sponsor of the amendment.
Thank you. Supervisor Alexander asks to be added as a co-sponsor. Hearing no objections, it is so. Supervisor Vincent.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. I do appreciate this amendment coming before us. Would have been helpful to have this even with our town halls that we had recently, but I am going to ask for unanimous consent to be added as a co-sponsor. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Vincent asks unanimous consent to be added as a co-sponsor. Hearing and seeing no objections, it is so. Supervisor Johnson Jr.
Chairwoman Taylor, I ask unanimous consent to be added as a co-sponsor to the amendment.
Supervisor Johnson Jr. asks unanimous consent to be added as a co-sponsor. Seeing and hearing no objections, it is so. Supervisor Rowland, apologies.
I'll do the same.
Supervisor Rowland asks unanimous consent to be added as a co-sponsor. Hearing and seeing no objections, it is so. Okay, I'm making sure Supervisor Gomez.
I also ask for unanimous consent to be added as a co-sponsor. Thank you.
Supervisor Gomez Thomas asks unanimous consent to be added as a co-sponsor. Hearing and seeing no objections, it is so. Supervisor Martinez. No, thank you. Supervisor Regalis.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Should we burden Milwaukee County residents with a higher sales tax today, we have then an enhanced responsibility to our taxpayers to give back where we can. And although Act 12 doesn't require year-end surpluses to be applied to pension costs until 2025, Milwaukee County can substitute 2023 and 2024 projected surpluses to reduce property tax that would otherwise pay pension costs and then lower property taxes for our residents. I see this as an amendment as a step towards that goal, and I look forward to a positive vote on this amendment and on item 8. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Regalis. Supervisor Sumner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to also be added as a co-sponsor to the amendment.
Supervisor Summer, ask unanimous consent to be added as a co-sponsor. Hearing and seeing no objections, it is so. The next person was Supervisor Cox. She stepped out. Okay. Any other supervisors? Supervisor Sesconis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm not going to ask to have my name added.
Sure.
So a little twist. But I do have a question for the author. This board still operates under state of Wisconsin property tax levy limits. We've been, in my view, pretty responsible in the last number of years. We've always kept our spending under those levy limits. We've always kept our increases in the levy in accordance with state law. Most of this sales tax increase, if it passes today, is going to go to help with the budget, the pension situation from 22 years ago. My question really is why are we so eager to tie our hands today and pledge that we're not going to want to spend anything that we are legally entitled to spend on a property tax increase that'll be less than 1%, which is usually what we do. So even if this sales tax passes today, we're still going to need revenue. I don't understand why we're eager to tie our hands with that particular line in this amendment. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Supervisor Sesconis, thank you. To the author of the motion, would you like to reply, Supervisor Nicholson?
I'll just briefly state that when this went to referendum in 2008, the question on 1% sales tax included the idea that residents would receive property tax relief. Right now in Milwaukee County, we have the 6th highest property taxes in the country. We cannot continue to fund our services on the backs of our homeowners. We need to diversify the way we receive revenue and spend our dollars, and this will allow us to paint a clear picture of what we have. Again, our property owners need relief, so this will allow that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Supervisor Nicholson. Supervisor Johnson, Jr.
Chairwoman Taylor, part of this 0.4% increase, proposed 4% increase in the county tax would eventually reduce our pension obligation bonds, which now are at $199 million. The bonds came into effect during the Obama administration, during the time of the Obama administration, I have to say, and that there will be property tax relief when those $199 million go down if this 0.4% property tax increase is adopted. Thank you, Chairwoman Taylor.
No, thank you, Supervisor Johnson, Jr. Supervisor Cox Jones.
I would like to be added as a co-sponsor, please. Thank you.
Supervisor Cox Jones asks unanimous consent to be added as a co-sponsor. Seeing and hearing no objections, it is so. Any other supervisor? Mr. Clerk, the amendment is before us. Added supervisors are Supervisor Martin, Alexander, Vincent, Johnson Jr., Gomez-Tons, Rollins, Sumner, and Cox Jones. Did I miss anyone? Thank you. Mr. Clerk, on the amendment.
The question is adoption of amendment number 1. Supervisor Alexander.
Aye.
Burgellis.
Aye.
Clancy.
Aye.
Cox Jones.
Aye.
Gomez-Tom.
Aye.
Johnson Jr.
Aye.
Logsdon.
Aye.
Martin.
Aye.
Martinez.
Aye.
Nicholson.
Aye.
Rolland.
Aye.
Shea.
Aye.
Staskunis. No. Sumner.
Aye.
Taylor District 17.
Aye.
Vincent.
Aye.
Wasserman. Madam Chairwoman.
Aye.
17 ayes, 1 no.
17 ayes, 1 no. Supervisor Nicholson.
Madam Chair, I move approval of item 8 as amended, please.
Yep. Before the body, it is approval as amended. Supervisor Clancy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I have to say, I'm hopeful and I'm confident that every person in this room will be casting a vote today based on what they think is best for residents. And I'm going to avoid personal attacks today like I do every day because that's beneath us, because it's petty, and because I want to focus on the process and I want to focus on the substance of what's before us. I know that this is not an easy vote, and I know that a lot of effort has gone into getting us here and in seeking out opinions from stakeholders in an earnest way. And I know that we're hearing different things from different people at different times in different districts. We've all been lobbied hard on this by leadership, yes, by huge and influential business interests, and indeed by some very powerful and earnest individuals who really believe that the sales tax is simply an immediate passing of the sales tax is the only option that we have available to us. We've seen slick presentations, we've seen people talk about selling off the parks and cutting half of our bus routes in a way that suggests that that's a possibility or a necessity in 5 months rather than 5 years, and it is not. It's frustrating to see that sort of hyperbole being used to shut down honest and nuanced discussion, because right now that's what we need the most. And yet we've all seen the polls which overwhelmingly say that residents do not want this sales tax. That is, of course, why our leaders, our leadership, yes, put so much time at that negotiating table into ensuring that this vote didn't go to a popular referendum rather than stripping away the onerous policy provisions. Because if this vote had gone to a popular referendum, it would have failed overwhelmingly, because the folks in Milwaukee County do not want this sales tax. And I appreciate the efforts that many folks have made to try to make the case for it, but ultimately, most households in Milwaukee County would not want this. That is why it didn't go to referendum. And I want to underline that idea and underline the idea that so much political capital was put into ensuring that it never went to the people directly. And there are voices out there who do not want this to happen, but unless we're listening to them, because they're very, very quiet, we're not going to hear them. Our poorest and our working class residents don't have lobbyists that can come speak to a committee in the middle of the day. They don't have full-time staffers that are committed to seeing this passed. They don't have email and phone trees that contact us over and over again in the last several days and weeks and even months. They just have us. And we know the data. We know that poor households are being asked to pay 7 times more as a percentage of their income than the people at the very top based on this sales tax and other sales and excise taxes. This is a regressive tax, and there are no exemptions that can make it otherwise. Yesterday, I sat down with an actual listening session over coffee with constituents, and I listened to Gary, who was concerned that the sales tax fell hard on retirees on fixed incomes, and AJ, who noted that it is doubly difficult on service industry workers, whose wages make the additional expense difficult, but who also face having their take-home pay reduced as diners spend more on the sales tax line, which is right above the tip line, and for restaurateurs who will see the service charges they give to the staff taxed at a higher rate as well. And we talked to many more, and the overwhelming voice that I'm hearing from people that are not representing government or big organizations or business interests is a no on this. But we also know that we do need more revenue. All of us in this room know full well what it's like to try to provide the good services that we know the county can without enough money to do it. Nobody's denying that. And more of our own shared revenue back to Milwaukee County would have fixed that, but that's not what happened at the table. That's not what we got. So now we're faced with this terrible choice. So this is not an easy decision, but we weren't elected to make easy decisions. This is a tough one, and we're elected to make the right choices, the right decisions. The problem here is that this is being sold to us, just like the museum vote was, as something that we need to do immediately, without a plan and without other options. And I'm hearing a lot of pushback from residents who are asking why on earth we would tax them $80 million and then not have a plan for what we're going to do with the $40 million that is freed up yet. And I appreciate, the words and the intent in this last amendment saying we'd like vaguely to spend it on good things, on parks and buses, on things that are not mandated. But we've had that choice for decades, and we've failed to do that. And I'm hearing from residents that they don't want business as usual. They don't want that normal process. They want us to have a plan in place before we reach into their pockets. And we don't have that yet. This amendment calls for us to put together that plan at some point in the future so we can see what the effects of the sales tax that we just passed would be. And that's just not responsible governance. we're hearing that year after year, the Balancing Act survey comes back, and people across Milwaukee County say that they want us to spend more money on parks and on buses and on the mandated services and housing and all the things that make Milwaukee County great, and yet we do the opposite year after year. We spend more on administration and on incarceration and on law enforcement and the things that every year after year, the surveys say people don't want us to spend money on. So the idea in front of us today is that we're going to take 80 million, we're going to have 40 million in front of us, and we have no plan and we have no real clear intent other than a vague notion that this time we're going to get it right, when we haven't so many years in the past. They don't want a vague promise, they want a plan which takes care of the people who will be harmed the most by this sales tax. And I spent many nights and days and annoyed the heck, I'm sure, out of our corporation counsel and many others, trying to figure out an actual plan that would undo some of the harm that we do with this sales tax. Everything from focusing on services that the most impoverished use the most, to trying to cut a check to Milwaukee County residents. But almost all of those avenues are not available to us. The state stops us from doing that. It would be great, it would be an elegant solution to say, hey, poorest households, you're gonna pay, counting the 0.5, another $100 or another $200 or another $300 a year. We're gonna figure out where that cutoff is, and we're gonna send you a check to try to undo some of the harm that we're doing, and we can't do that. The state won't let us in Wisconsin. But we finally came up with a plan that involves eliminating bus fares for the folks who this plan harms the most, that this sales tax harms the most. Because we know that the vast majority of folks riding transit, riding the buses, are not extremely well off. We know that more than half of them make $50,000 a year. More than a third of them make less than $25,000 a year. So in doing that and subsidizing transit in a real way for those poorest residents, we can undo the harm of this. And it would also mean that we could have dedicated transit funding, something that transit advocates, myself included, have been asking for decades now. And we know how necessary and important that is, because in the last state budget, and nobody's talking about this, the budget that was signed by the governor moves transit funding from the segregated account into the general fund. That doesn't sound like much of a change, but what that means is that transit from here on forward is going to be competing with all these other priorities across the state. It also signals to me, and I think to other folks paying attention, that the folks at the state are going after transit. We need a plan to protect our buses, we need a plan to protect paratransit, and that's what we're presenting. And this is a big plan. This is not something that we can put together overnight. MCTS did not have the data available. We just sent this to them last week. It's totally understandable that they don't have that at their fingertips. What I'm asking for here is to step back, to put together an actual plan to save transit rather than just a vague notion, and to delay this item in front of us for a few months so that we can get there. Whether the transit resolution passes or whether others do, and I hope that my colleagues will come up with actual plans that we can put in place before this passes. It means that we will have taken a step back from this, hashed out a plan, and considered it carefully in committee rather than taxing our residents for millions without a plan for how to spend it. We owe our residents that much, and we only need a few months to do it. Whatever compromise we come to would only delay the implementation of the sales tax from January 1st to March 1st. The other scenario is this, that we don't take a step back, we force this through with an up or down vote today, we remain divided, and there's a reasonable chance that it doesn't pass today. And that in some cases would be, in many cases, would be far worse, because if it fails today, we cannot consider that same item for 6 months. It means that the first time that we could have access to this would be June 1st. I want this debate to be over as much as many of you do. I appreciate that it's not an easy vote, and I don't relish the idea of considering it again in 6 months or 2, but as electeds, we have the responsibility to make sure that we have a plan before we commit to what is likely to be a permanent and regressive tax. And I say permanent, not temporary, because I cannot find any instances of a government rolling out a sales tax and then rolling it back. Because once it's baked into the budget, once a government depends on that regressive form of taxation, it's almost impossible to withdraw. So yes, this could last 15 years or 30 years, but realistically, this is going to last forever, and I want to be sure that we know what's in front of us. So that we can fully consider a resolution tied to it to provide targeted and dedicated transit funding, I move to lay this item over until the September cycle. Thank you.
Okay. So that was your motion, Supervisor Clancy? Okay. And just for clarity, because I know there's no motion to lay it over, when we're speaking on the amendment, and I understand like this is a very hard vote, let's make sure we kind of stick to that amendment or whatever that resolution or what's before us on the floor. I know we would like to talk about other things or connected, but we're going to make sure that we kind of stay on task today. I just ask that respectfully. There is a motion for layover on the floor. Dealing with the clerk that does take the precedence, correct?
Well, Madam Chairman, yeah, that would take precedence, and it's a minority vote. Requires six votes.
Absolutely. So before us is layover. I want us to be very clear on what is before us as we are speaking.
Madam Chairman.
One second, make sure I get clarity.
Make sure I understood. Is he postponing to a date certain, or is he laying over?
For the motion maker, Supervisor Clancy, just on if you are a date certain, or what are you laying over for? That's exactly what we're asking.
Thank you. Appreciate the clarity. Postponing to a date certain to the September cycle. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Madam Chairwoman, that would require a majority vote then to postpone. That would require a majority vote, members, yeah.
My apologies. I meant layover.
Okay, so we, once again, just to make it clear, Mr. Clerk.
Madam Chairwoman, members, layover for one meeting would require a one-third minority vote, 6 votes.
I see 2 people standing up. I want you to be very certain we are on layover. So that day, that's what we're speaking on. Supervisor Johnson Jr. first, and then Supervisor Martinez.
Chairwoman Taylor, I'm going to vote against the layover. I think it is prudent for us to go forward as it relates to this matter. If this matter is passed, $82 million will be available, would be collected, I should say, in 2004. $82 million. It would be guaranteed that Milwaukee County government would get a $7.6 million shared revenue amount of money. With respect to, thank you.
The layover?
With respect to the layover, I'm addressing the layover. It would be important to understand that in 2025, as far as the fiscal cliff is concerned, even though it is would have a structural deficit of $18 million in 2024, that goes to $52 million in 2025. So that would mean that there would be cuts in bus services, there would be cuts in a lot of different areas. The difference between 18 million and the Director of Strategy, Budget, and Performance has indicated to us that over the years, we've had from 15 million or so as a structural deficit from a year up to $21 million. $52 million structural deficit in 2025 would be devastating to Milwaukee County government. Devastating. If $21 million is what we've had to deal with over the years as supervisors, then that would, as I said, be devastating. As far as a plan, we have a plan from year to year to year. We have a budget process. We are not the state legislature, which has a biannual or a plan every 2 years, a budget plan every 2 years. So I just wanted to also say that I did check with Comptroller Mansky as it relates to what this would yield, this 4.4% proposed sales tax, and it would be for a $100 purchase, the tax would be only 40 cents. For a $100 purchase, 40 cents. 40 cents. So I am, again, going to vote against the layover for one meeting. $100 purchase, 40 cents. Not $4, not $40, 40 cents on a $100 purchase. So thank you for your time, Chairwoman Taylor.
Thank you, Supervisor Johnson Jr. Supervisor Martinez.
Thank you very much, Chairwoman Taylor. This vote has kept me up. I'm just going to go through it really quick for me so I don't have to talk anymore when we take the vote and everything. This has been extremely hard on me specifically, and I know for my party and for everything that it does, socialism is taxes, and implementing this is like the good way, right? And what my party entails, but I'm not a member of my party today. I am a member of my constituency, and I've spoken to everybody in my a lot of the people that have been able to make their voices heard. And you have all seen me in lockstep with Supervisor Clancy. And I do consider him my mentor and everything that he does. But today I am not in agreement. And I am going to vote against the layover, and I do intend to vote yes on the taxes. And I just want to make that clear. And I've spoken with him, and I've spoken with all of you, and everybody has come at me and told me all the reasons why we need to vote on it and all the fiscal things and everything. But for me, it is my intention for my constituents to see the positivity of their investments, because that's what it is. It's an investment for my constituents into their district. And I intend to harangue and badger all through the next term, all through whenever I'm serving as a supervisor, to make sure that that money is going to go for what we need. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Martinez. Seeing no other supervisors, Supervisor Rowland.
There's a very robust plant right there. It's really.
It is. Lovely planting by the chairwoman, but
not a lot of light. Anyway, I would like to speak against the layover for a number of reasons that have already been brought up. We would not be able to get access to $21 million in sales tax revenue if this is delayed till September, number one. That's number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Number 7 is the rationale for this delay is a want to lay out, all the details of a bus plan that is, fully ready to go, but we just need 2 months to figure out the details. But don't you worry, guys. We will have an exceptional bus plan. If we just kick this can and miss out on $21 million, don't you worry about it. We don't have a bus plan. There is no bus plan. There is no fiscal note for a bus plan. There's not even an amendment on the floor for a bus plan. There's no bus plan. If we want a bus plan, as the supervisor from the 2nd District brought up, there's a budget process that we can talk about a plan for public transit, amongst other things that we hope to fund in 2024. To me, that is the appropriate time to take something like that up. If we choose to change the way that we organize public transit, let's take it up then when we have all the details, when we have the plan, and we can decide alongside all the other things that we need to fund if that feels appropriate or not. So I would argue that a layover is not necessary. We can take up a bus plan later. It's not necessary to lay it over if you want to talk about the bus later on. Number, 8, I don't know where I am, but we talked about, a slick presentation that was provided to us. That's one way to characterize it. Another way to characterize it is the reality of where we are. If we do not come up with a fiscal solution, we will go over the fiscal cliff, which will cause us to have to cut all the non-revenue generating parks programs, 50% of our bus routes, all the housing supports that we provide, helping people in need, homeless people, funding for our cultural institutions, public museum, art museum, veterans memorial. We would have to cut back on mental health, potentially close the emergency health center, make cuts to the courts, to the jail, making the backlog that we have even longer, cut our 911 emergency response, and 20% cut across the board, which would impact every single service that Milwaukee County provides. That's so damaging. We don't have to go down that path. We don't have to delay. We have the information before us. We don't need more information. We should just vote on this today. The last thing I'll say two more things. It was also brought up that moneyed interests were, involved here. And I just want to rattle off a quick list of the groups that reached out to me, at least, and you can tell me if they are moneyed interests. The Mental Health Board, the Disability Resource Center, the Ability Center, Mentor Milwaukee, Urban Underground, the Wisconsin Veterans Chamber of Commerce, the LGBT Chamber of Commerce, the Carpenters Union, Mobilize, the County Commission on Aging, ATU, the Transit Union, Safe and Sound, Sojourner House, Near West Side Partners, Running Rebels, Boys and Girls Club, Greater Milwaukee Committee, the 16th Street Community Health Centers, the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, and the Friends of Milwaukee County Parks, to name a few. There are a lot more. I would not characterize those as muddied interests. I would characterize those as neighbors and community advocates who care deeply about having funding so we can have a government that provides services. The last thing, yesterday, I chose to drag a couch out of the Menominee River because some kids had pushed this couch into the river. And as on next door, there's this couch, by the river now. Who's gonna do that? Or like, now there's this couch in the river. How are we gonna get that out? And I thought about it for a second and thought about how long it would probably take for our Parks Department to put aside everything else that they've got on their plate in terms of maintenance, capital improvements. They got to go to this river and drag this couch out of the river. So I just decided I'm going to go drag this couch out of the river because we're so underfunded and lack of staff that just somebody had to go drag this couch out of the river. That's where we're at. Delaying this makes that situation worse. So unless everybody here is signing up to drag couches out of the river or whatever needs to be done to deliver county services, then we need funding to actually deliver. So please do not lay this over, and let's just take this vote on a clean bill today. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Rodland. I am sure we all appreciative of all of your services. Now we know who to call if we need something to be moved. Supervisor Burgelis, and then Supervisor Taylor from the 17th.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. I see a delay on this vote as a burden, not to just the residents, but also to our staff. We're in the middle of generating a budget for 2024, and a delay here would cost us $7 million a month, or $21 million if we didn't have the sales tax enacted in the first quarter of next year, and that will prompt a chaotic, and I'll say irresponsible budget process where we won't know what our revenues are going to be next year. So I urge a no vote on this delay.
Thank you, Supervisor Burgelis. Supervisor Taylor from the 17th, and the good doctor, Supervisor Wasserman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to be brief because I'm going to focus specifically on the layover, but I do have some furniture that needs to be moved around in my house. So this weekend, feel free to stop. This decision does need to be made today. We understand that $21 million is at stake if we don't. So I think that right there is kind of an incentive not to. But it's not like we didn't know this was coming. And the author of the layover motion is in the state assembly and is fully aware of all the conversations that were taking place. So when we know when the budget needs to be adopted, so there was plenty of time to come up with a plan. Plenty of time to come up with a plan, knowing there was going to be some sort of percentage, whether it was 0.275, whether it was 0.3%, whether it was 0.4. I mean, the number changed and always increased a little bit. It's still not enough, but it increased a little bit. So what we're being asked is, let's plan for a plan. So I don't buy that question. To the clerk, so you can get back up there if you want, and you're not blocking me in the camera. Oh, I know you do. Your head gets in the way. The next meeting. So would that apply if there was an August meeting called? Would that be the next meeting if we call the August meeting, or is that specifically a normally cycled meeting? And maybe that's a corp counsel to answer. I just would like to know that first.
Madam Chairwoman,
Clerk.
members, the layover is for one meeting, so if this body were to schedule another meeting prior to the October meeting, then it would be that meeting. So, for example, if you schedule one in August, it would be in August.
Okay. And, I know that there had been at the Joint Committee on Finance and, was it Personnel?
Personnel, yes.
Personnel. Some talk about delays because supervisors had, town hall meetings and they want more information in that. But if, I worry that to avoid the losing out on $21 million, that then there would be an initiative to potentially hold an August meeting. And then because people have an August recess, you may have members, including myself, that may not be here depending on what it was called. And then that causes a challenge if you need to get to 12, because you have to get to 12 regardless of how many people are in the building. So I think those are just reasons to not lay it over. We've been talking about this financial situation, this fiscal cliff, long before many of you were in this building. There's only, like a handful that were here before April of 2016. So I think we know what's at stake. Now the question is are we going to vote for it or not? And your rationale for voting for it or not, which I'll get into when we're not discussing layover.
Thank you, Supervisor Taylor. From 17, Supervisor Wasserman.
Thank you, Chairwoman. We were all elected to do a job. Today, we have to do that job. We can't delay. The cameras aren't here. The newspapers aren't here. Social media isn't here for nothing. They're here for us to do the job that we have to do. So let's just do it. Or to quote Nike Corporation, just do it. Let's take the vote.
The good doctor with Nike. Thank you. Seeing no other supervisors, Mr. Clerk, on the motion of layover.
The question is, shall the item be laid over for one meeting? Supervisor Alexander.
No.
Burgellis.
No.
Clancy.
Aye.
Cox Jones.
No.
Gomez Tom.
No.
Johnson Jr. No. Logsdon.
No.
Martin.
Nay.
Martinez.
No.
Nicholson.
No.
Rolland.
No.
Shea.
No.
Staskunas. No. Sumner.
No.
Taylor District 17.
No.
Vincent.
No.
Wasserman. No. Madam Chairwoman.
No.
1 aye, 17 noes. The item is before you still.
1 aye, 17 noes. Are we back? Supervisor Gomez says. Toms, sorry.
Are we back on the motion to approve?
The motion as amended, yes.
Okay.
Supervisor Burgellis, I saw you stand up, then sit down. The same question? Yes.
No, do I need to wait to give my comments?
We're back to the motion to move as amended, correct, Mr. Clerk? Yes. So that's what's before us right now.
Okay, thank you, Chairwoman.
I just want to make sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So when I decided to run for county supervisor, I made a commitment to do right by my district, not only by doing the work, to understand the challenges at hand, but listening with my heart and being honest about how I got to each vote decision. I was elected and I'm here because I care. and I want to ensure that my community's voice is at the table and that Milwaukee County can be a place where people have what they need to thrive and not merely survive. When the issue of voting for or against a sales tax increase was introduced, I, like many others, did not know what the county faced. Over the last few weeks, I've heard many colleagues say that this is or will be one of the most important votes that they'll take in their entire careers. Their entire careers. As of today, I have been in my position for 83 days. Not even 3 months in, and I may be casting my most impactful vote as a supervisor. When we strip away the bright lights and media attention, the county has to do what we all do. We sit at a kitchen table, in this case, our kitchen table is this chamber, and we figure out what needs to be done to pay the bills and keep the lights on some of the most crucial services and resources the county is required to offer and wants to offer. Services like the transit system, mental health resources, programs for our seniors, parks, and housing programs, to name a few. Let's take a small step back and gain perspective on how we got to today's vote. Over the last 10 years, Milwaukee County, actually more than 10 years, Milwaukee County has faced a budget deficit of about $300 million. The county balanced the budget by doing some of what some of my constituents have told me they wanted: cutting employee jobs, services, resources. Over these 10 years, the cuts became significant to the point where further cuts would mean the loss of programs or providing these services in a way that would not comply with state law. If the programs do not comply with state law, then there are state-mandated financial penalties as well as harm that will inevitably happen to those who depend on these resources. It makes no sense for Milwaukee County to cut services to save money only to be fined by the state of Wisconsin and either not save as much money or potentially lose money than we save, lose more money than we save. Of course, the most logical question is, how does Milwaukee County make more money to pay for state-mandated and key community services and obligations? Over the last 10 years, the county has come up with creative ways to make money. Beer gardens, competitive grants, fees for certain services, and some increases to property tax as allowed by the state help the county patch some of these shortfalls. But no amount of beer gardens, and I'm sorry, we're in Wisconsin, but no amount of beer gardens or fees or even grants will get the county the $300 million it'll need to cover over the next 5 years. So once again, how can Milwaukee County get more money? The Wisconsin state government, particularly the state assembly and state senate, determines how much Milwaukee County gets. Milwaukee County brings a lot of money to the state through income taxes, state sales taxes, and other income. Although the money that Milwaukee County residents and visitors have brought to the state has increased exponentially over the last 10 years, the amount the county gets back from the state has stayed the same or even decreased. Our Wisconsin state representatives knew that there was a growing financial shortfall for Milwaukee County. They had the opportunity to address it by passing a law to allow Milwaukee to get more money from the state. They could have given Milwaukee its fair share. They didn't. They purposely did not choose this option. The majority of the state legislature, many of whom do not know Milwaukee and have incorrect or even damaging assumptions about Milwaukee, made a conscious and supposedly well-reasoned decision to give Milwaukee a minimal increase in funds. They looked at Milwaukee and through their law said, Milwaukee brings in tons of money for the state. Let's first not give them their fair share. And second, let's attach conditions to the money we do give them. One of those conditions was the option to assess a Milwaukee County sales tax. This option is why we're here today. We are here today because people who don't know Milwaukee, don't care about Milwaukee, and who don't want to acknowledge the fact that Milwaukee is the financial lifeblood of this state, passed a law to give Milwaukee the privilege of choosing between passing a sales tax increase on its own residents or face impending bankruptcy. With that background, what are our options? It is an established fact that sales taxes are regressive. I'm a social worker. This is the first thing they teach you. Sales taxes impacts those who have lower incomes more than those who have higher incomes. Someone making $10,000 is going to feel it more than someone making $100,000. But based on the analysis of Milwaukee County's financial history, if the sales tax doesn't pass, we are left with the impossible task of cutting departments, programs that have already gone through 10 years of agonizing cuts and more. Those cuts would be an additional 20 to 40% from departments that provide the transit system, mental health resources, programs for our seniors, parks, and housing programs. Sound familiar? These are the programs that directly impact and support many of our neighbors and are enjoyed by most of our community. I have heard from some of my colleagues and have had them say that maybe Milwaukee County can wait things out. Over time, it can be possible that certain what-if situations could occur. In my experience, many Milwaukee residents can't plan for their future using what-if scenarios. They're planning based on what they currently have, what's in their wallet, what's in their bank account. We cannot afford to wait and see if certain what-if scenarios materialize. We can't gamble the transit system, mental health programs, programs for our seniors, parks, and housing programs on what if. The stakes are too big to gamble and potentially lose. I often think about the first public hearing that the board had on this sales tax on July 11th, where a person shared that without the bus, she would literally starve. This person said that it took 2 buses to get to the nearest grocery store. And don't get me started, those are some other broken systems that we have to fix. But since their testimony, I've heard more of these testimonies from people in District 14. And I know that many people in my community who may not have reached out to me, but nonetheless depend on the parks as a safe place to exercise, relax, and spend time with community. There are many seniors who rely on programs that connect them to one another and people and resources. And there are many people who need or will need access to key mental health services. Do I wish we had another option? Of course. Do I hope the current state legislature will change their mind, open their hearts and minds, and authentically get to know Milwaukee and give the county what it needs? Definitely, and I'd be open for those conversations. Will I wait and risk losing funds to keep community necessary services? Absolutely not. I'm voting yes today, and it is not an easy decision. I'm making the best decision for my community with what I believe is our only viable option. My community faces these types of choices every day, so I stand up and make mine. Ideally, we'll be able to pivot when more choices, hopefully better ones than what the state legislature has given us, are available. Thank you, Chairwoman.
Thank you, Supervisor Gomez-Sams. Supervisor Regelis.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairwoman. This is a heavy topic, an important vote for the members of this body, but I want everyone who lives in and visits Milwaukee County to enjoy all of the great things that make our county an incredible home and destination. Milwaukee County Transit connects our community, and green spaces, cultural institutions, and parks enrich our lives, our learning, and our health. But I also want people who enjoy these things to help participate in the cost. Right now, the vast majority of tax levy is generated by property tax. That is regressive, and it burdens our residents far more than it should. The reality is our state statutes have made that the only option for local governments. And for decades, while county expenses have grown by 2% a year and revenue has grown by just 1% a year, it doesn't take a mathematician to tell you that that's not a sustainable way to budget your resources. Today we have a historic opportunity to restore fiscal responsibility and still maintain county services. Clearly, there's a lot more work to be done. But I'll keep my sleeves rolled up and I'll be ready to do the work, and I hope the members of this body are ready for that too. A no vote today is a vote to fundamentally change what county services we provide our most marginalized residents and everyone in Milwaukee County. If you don't think that transit is important, vote no. If you don't think that funding our parks with any tax levy is important, vote no. If you think that a magic wand will come out of the clouds and solve the staffing problems and resulting consequences at our jail and community reintegration center without raising wages to be competitive for our correctional officers, vote no. If you think funding senior centers isn't important, and you don't think that senior nutrition is worthwhile, vote no. If you're okay devastating the quality of life for every single resident and visitor to Milwaukee County, then vote no. Though not mandated by the state, I think the services that Milwaukee County provides are critical for the health and well-being of our residents. A yes vote won't solve all of our challenges, but it gives our leadership a fighting chance to continue. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman.
Thank you, Supervisor Bregelis, Supervisor Vincent, and Supervisor Sumner.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. And what I can say is, wow, we're here to make a very important decision today. I appreciate my colleagues for voting no to postpone and put this off. Initially, I had asked for this to be delayed until maybe August, but I know that we're on recess and that would just prolong things. I have several things to say today. I did not write out a written report because I really want to speak from my heart today. First of all and foremost, I do respect every single one of you on the board floor here. We are in a tough position. This is not my first time as an elected official. As many of you know, I've served on I am currently the school board president for the Greendale School Board. We had 2 very difficult years with COVID where we were yelled at for 2 years, and I know, Chairwoman, you can experience that as well. And it wasn't always popular what we were choosing to address and respond to. The word courage came up the other day. I think in the month of May, I did display to this board and really to the public and the world that I personally do have courage to step up and make hard decisions. I've had 15 months now as a county supervisor to get acclimated. I want to thank the directors of the different departments for taking the time to bring me up to speed on the needs of all the departments of Milwaukee County. I have visited virtually every department at some point over these last 15 months and have a full understanding of the needs that are before us. Courage, I'm just going to say, I did have this down, is doing what you are afraid to do, and there can be no courage unless you are scared. I have not slept for several days now, a good night's sleep anyways, trying to determine what my vote is going to be on this floor today. And what I do know is that I have people on both sides of this issue, and they need to know that their voice is being heard. I'm in a position where I'm not going to be able to satisfy everyone to their liking. It's just not going to be a case this time. There's pressure involved in these kinds of decisions. I want to thank the county exec and Governor Evers, who I had conversations with both of them yesterday, for not pressuring me, but for basically listening to where I'm at as an elected official and how this decision is going to impact the people that I serve. I don't want to come out straight out right now and say how I'm going to vote in a moment, but I am going to vote for my heart. And I want this body to know and the public to know that I have weighed in all of the voices I possibly could. I had COVID a couple weeks ago, and I still attended the town hall virtually to hear the voices of those that wanted to be heard. I've been getting calls all the way up through this morning, even messages as this meeting is taking place, as I'm sure many of you are. Special interests are not part of why I chose to serve. I chose to serve the people that elected me to serve. And so it's really important for people to know that I don't take any decision lightly, and that this decision today is going to be based on what I believe is going to be the best moving our county forward. We have a role as elected officials to do what's best in helping move our communities forward. When I hear things like mental health and transit, senior centers are going to be impacted, that does make me concerned, because I have had many people reach out to me. An individual by the name of Kevin, I'll just mention, who's blind, who relies on paratransit service. This could greatly impact his ability to actually function in the world as we know it. And so that's really important to me, to hear his voice. Although his voice might not have been the loudest voice I've heard over the last several months, it resonates in my heart that this individual may not have a lifestyle that's, up to where it needs to be. I also spoke with Nancy this morning, and I don't think she was expecting me to call, because she sent me a message early this morning. And she too talked about how her disability will make things very much more difficult for her. Many of you, not many of you, but some of us attended the Universal groundbreaking yesterday for the park at Wisconsin Avenue. And as you know, that park is meant to be an all-inclusive park for everyone in our community, from seniors to children. And I just can't imagine going forward if we don't take a step right now to help move our parks and our all of our departments forward, what that's going to mean for the county. I don't know that we can backpedal if we don't make a hard decision today. So as I stand before you here, I've had lots of people reach out, media included, wanting to know my answer, and I don't answer to the media to make my decisions, but I want them to know too that the real people behind this are our residents, and they have a voice and a stake in this. And we are going to have to make a decision today to do what's best for our residents. And so with that being said, I want you to know that my heart is in this full force. I don't know if I'll sleep tonight. I think I will sleep tonight, because I believe I'm going to make the decision that I believe in my heart of hearts is the best one moving this county forward. And again, I just want to thank all my colleagues, because I know that this is hard for all of us. And many of you have shared some very inspiring words here today. Chairwoman Nicholson, I know we've had an opportunity to talk over the last couple days, and I want you to know that your leadership is important in all this. Your amendment today does mean a lot to me, because I think it does take us to that level of making sure that there's accountability. None of us, except for maybe Supervisor Johnson Jr., were on the board when the pension crisis took place, and I think he's here because he made the right decision. But what I am going to say is that all of us here today have an opportunity to be the change makers for the future of the county of Milwaukee. And so with that being said, it will be in my heart of hearts to make the vote that's best suited for this county today. And for any constituents who might be on an opposite side of how I'm feeling, please know that your voice has been heard. But just like during COVID, I wasn't able to vote on both sides of the aisle. So I'm going to make a tough decision today, and I'm going to own that decision. I'm going to live with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Vincent. Supervisor Sumner, and then Supervisor Johnson Jr.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So as Finance Chair, yesterday I met with staff to set dates for the budget briefings this fall. And I think that was, as much as I understand the gravity of this decision that we're making today, that was the first time that it really hit me how this is the first budget since I've been serving on this board in 2020 that we are actually, if we do not vote to pass this sales tax today, we'll actually be looking at a serious deficit that we are going to have to cut staff, programs, funding for all different kinds of things. So we will be looking at $11 million deficit as opposed to hopefully a $32 million surplus that we will actually be able to make some investments in that will hopefully save us money down the road. I fortunately have had overwhelming support from my district to vote for this sales tax increase. I know we've also heard from many community and business organizations that are all asking us to do this because they understand how important it is to have a solvent county government. I think some of the complaints that we've heard are belt tightening. The way that I see it, I mean, we've gotten so thin and punched so many extra holes in our belt that there's just really like no more room to get the belt around anymore. Pension reform, I think that really hasn't been highlighted as part of what this decision is that we're making today. We are reforming the pension today. That's what we're doing. And that's like such a huge part of what people are upset with us about. We are taking steps to make sure that we put the county in a place where, you know, the pension isn't going to be a burden on us for forever. And finally, effects on small businesses. I am a small business owner, and I have worked for the past 16 years to carry a product mix and have staffing, customer service at my business that guarantees that people come back to my business to support me and my staff and know how important it is to the community. And I guess I would ask small business owners that are arguing that this is going to really hurt them, you know, what they've done to guarantee that people want to continue to go there. I mean, we are, you know, not only are we elected officials, but we are also residents of this county. And I know that I live here because this is a great place on a great lake. I love it. When people come to visit me from out of town, they are shocked at how cool Milwaukee is. It just doesn't get its due. And I don't think that any of us, because of a 4.4% sales tax increase, as Supervisor Johnson pointed out, 40 cents on $100, is going to affect our decision to go and support our favorite local businesses. I just don't see that happening. I don't see me packing up my house and moving my family to a county where it's 0.4% less sales tax. I just don't see how these arguments are valid in what we are doing here today as opposed to the upside of this. And so with that, I ask you all to vote in support of this resolution today, as I will be doing.
Thank you, Supervisor Sumner. Supervisor Johnson Jr., Supervisor Wasserman, and Supervisor Shea. Supervisor Alexander after that. Supervisor Johnson, you have the floor.
Chairwoman Taylor, I was one of the 5 who did not vote for that original pension package in the early 2000s. I also want to thank the county executive and the government affairs people with the county executive and the county board for their diligence in working with Wisconsin Counties Association, and I am a former president of the Wisconsin Counties Association and also a current board member of the Wisconsin Counties Association. And I understand that there's been a lot of talk about what's been before us, even though there was a higher number. But in 2018, as Director Lamers of the Strategy, Budget, and Performance Office would tell you, that in 2018, there was a task force that came up with a recommendation of a 0.5% increase. And now we're looking at 0.4% today. So I just wanted to give some of that history to county board members and anybody who's listening so that hopefully we're going to go forward today and reap the benefits of what's before us today. Thank you, Chairwoman Taylor.
Thank you, Supervisor Johnson Jr. Supervisor Wasserman.
Thank you, Chair. I want to echo some of the comments that Supervisor Sumner said, as well as Supervisor Johnson said. What are we really here doing today? It's correcting a mistake that took place over 20 years ago in this very boardroom. A mistake that had a monumental trajectory changes for Milwaukee County when they voted for that pension. That pension destroyed the future for Milwaukee County. We're here today to correct that mistake. The first pension Milwaukee County had was back in 1938. In 1938, they formed this pension, and they had the option to go into the Wisconsin retirement system, but Milwaukee County said, we're doing it on our own, and they were doing very well on their own. And over the decades, they did very, very well. They They were doing so fantastic they thought they could come up with something, a sweetener, something that was better. But they made a terrible mistake. In this very room, in the very chairs that you're sitting in today, that mistake took place. So what we're doing today is correcting that mistake. We are ending Milwaukee County retirement system once and for all because we can't financially support it. It's a boondoggle. It's a mistake that year after year since 2001, we've done everything in our power to fix, backfill it, change the requirements. But it's not fixable. The pension we have right now has over 2,000 variations of trying to come up with what a pensioner would have. We have the most complicated pension in the entire United States. It's not our fault. People who were just elected 84 days ago, it's not your fault. You know, the only one who voted on it, and he voted right way back then, Supervisor Johnson, wasn't his fault. But it was a fault of those individuals years back. Now, we have to end it. Pensioners who are retiring today can't even figure out what their pension is. We have an accountant has to check with the other accountant to come up with the pension because it's so complicated. We can't even get software, computer programs to figure out when people retire today. So when people talk about workers' rights, we talk about workers. Doesn't a worker who works hard deserve a pension? Don't they have the right to get a pension that's going to be fixed for the rest of their lives where they feel safe? What type of system do you have when you're a worker and you go into a pension office and they look at you and they go like, we can't come up with your pension? Because there's a doctor who just recently retired, and I shouldn't be that specific. But guess what? It took over a year for them to come up with what he should receive. That's not right. Other workers are being told, you got to wait it out, we got to wait it out. So what do you do when you have no income at all? You wait and wait? This is a ridiculous system. The Wisconsin retirement system is the way to go. And for every new employee, if we pass this today, starting on January 1st, 2025, will be assured a simple, solid pension that will pay benefits for the rest of their lives. That's the way we should do it. So today we correct that mistake. We correct the mistake that changed the trajectory of Wisconsin. Governor Walker would never have been governor if it wasn't for this pension. Other political lives would have been changed. So let's do the right thing today. Let's make this change. Let workers be guaranteed a pension that they can have and not do what Detroit did and go bankrupt. Or Orange County and all the other counties around in other areas of the state. Let's have a pension that workers, when they retire, have the simple ability to go into an office, have somebody fill out the form, here's what your choices are, and get that pension. Milwaukee County deserves better. Today, we correct that mistake that took place in 2001. It's been over 85 years since this pension's been here, but it's time Wisconsin and the Milwaukee County residents join the Wisconsin system. WRS is the way to go. I'm proud to support it. My district is supportive of it because when you talk about pensions, people get it. 90% of my district wants this. Everybody should do this, and let's enjoy the benefits, and let's save Milwaukee County. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Supervisor Wasserman. Supervisor Shea.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Supervisor Rowland, I have a piano. I'd like to move.
He started something.
Madam Chair, I've been on the Milwaukee County Board for over 5 years. And even if I go on to serve more terms, this may be the single most consequential vote I ever cast as a member of this body. I have listened to all the arguments for and against. The supervisor from the 4th District says this tax is regressive as it will hit the poorest citizens the hardest. He's correct. It will. Act 12 also usurps local control and gives Milwaukee County the smallest increase in revenue of any county in the state. Sadly, that is exactly what we should expect from a state legislature where members of the majority party get elected by showing contempt for Milwaukee City and County. The supervisor from the 16th District tells us that even if the new Wisconsin Supreme Court gives the state non-gerrymandered electoral maps, the current majority party may still run the legislature. He too is correct. The current majority party can lose a dozen seats in the assembly and still have the majority. As painful as all this is to contemplate, we must consider what will happen if we don't pass this measure. Funding for our park system has already been cut to the bone. Without this measure, more cuts are a certainty. Milwaukee County Health Services are vulnerable. When I moved to Milwaukee 40 years ago, walking down Wisconsin Avenue from my apartment on Marquette campus to the Grand Avenue Mall was running a gauntlet of people with all manner of mental health challenges. Does anybody want to return to that? And as Citizen Terry King made clear before the Committee of the Whole, she and thousands of other Milwaukeeans depend on the Milwaukee County Transit System to get to work, to school, to the store, and the doctor's office. If we start eliminating bus lines, the poor, elderly, and physically challenged will be hit the hardest. Asking them to walk anywhere from a half mile to a mile to catch a bus, especially in winter, is as regressive as it gets. Milwaukee County is the economic engine of Wisconsin. Will businesses want to move here if our basic services are in free fall? I believe not. Even if this measure passes, Milwaukee City and County will have smaller sales tax than comparable metropolitan areas. Chicago's is 10.5, Atlanta's 8.9, Denver's 8.8, Dallas 8.25, and Phoenix is 8.6. I wish we had a better way of raising revenue, but at this moment we don't. This is a classic case of Hobson's choice. It's this or nothing. Someday the Wisconsin legislature will be run by people who love Wisconsin more than they hate Milwaukee. When that's going to happen, I can't say. I can say by passing this measure, we will give Milwaukee County an opportunity to hopefully make it to that day. When I first ran for office, I pledged to my constituents that I would protect the great heritage we received from previous generations who lived in Milwaukee County. That is exactly what I intend to do. I call upon my 17 colleagues in this body to join me in voting yes on this measure. Madam Chair, I yield back.
Thank you, Supervisor Shea. Supervisor Alexander.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. I do have commentary on the motion before us, but first I'd like to offer to do a little bit of housekeeping by asking for a couple questions from Corporation Counsel, or if more appropriate, our financial experts. I recognize we have a lot of visitors with us today. We have a lot of media in the room, and it's a hot topic. I want to make sure that we have the question addressed of, is the ERS actually closing? And also, are there any major changes that will happen to the monthly benefits for current retirees and current employees in the ERS, just so that we have that all down pat and exposed in this meeting? And then after that question, I would like to regain the floor. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Supervisor Alexander. Corporation Counsel, you have the floor, Maggie Dunn.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good afternoon, Supervisors. I believe we are afternoon.
Yes.
First, so as a technical matter in the legalistic language of pension landscapes, no, the current employee retirement system is not closing. It will be around to pay out all of those benefits vested, due, and owing to current retirees and to every single one of my civil servant colleagues that I see in the gallery and sitting with me staffing this meeting. And on that note, to the second question, Madam Chairwoman, no, the changes and reforms today that will affect future employees will not interrupt, disturb, or reduce any of the monthly pension benefits for our current retirees or any of our current employees that are dedicating their lives to public service. Thank you for allowing me to make that clarification.
Thank you, Corporation Counsel. Supervisor Alexander, you still have the floor. Any other comments or questions for Corporation Counsel? But I know you also have a commentary after that.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. So Many of you know me as being contemplative. I've never been afraid to move a vote after deciding the night before a vote of how things needed to go, and then walking into our chambers here and learning new information and deciding what to do. I think most of you probably know that many years ago when I first ran for county supervisor, I took a term limit oath. I didn't advertise it a whole lot, but when it came time for me to honor that oath, despite my desire to stay, I did step away from this job and came back after taking a break like I promised I would. Most people probably don't know that at the same time I was asked back in 2011 to take a term limit oath, I was also asked to take an oath to never vote to raise taxes. And that oath I did not accept. When asked to do that, my response was, but if I make that promise to you, then I will block the ability to make good decisions based on potentially very valid new information. So it would be errant of me to make that oath. I don't intend to want to raise taxes, and I think the record will show that over the past decade I have very often voted against raising taxes and have done what I could to stop spending that I thought that constituents would disagree with. But I have found myself in a place with today's vote where some have said, oh, this is going to be a hard vote today. And I wanted to just share with everybody why this is not a hard vote for me. I think that it's easy for some people to say that it's an offense to raise taxes, but those that I've heard from that are adamantly against the proposed increase seem to either not know about or not care that for the first time in over a decade that I've been involved here, or possibly ever in the county history, we have this opportunity to finally make the Milwaukee County pension system a distant memory. Milwaukee County, for many reasons, has had financial and spending problems that are eating the taxpayers' well-being like a cancer. To avoid curing that ailment with a grenade and eventually blowing it up, the state legislature created a tool for us to use. It's a lot like a surgical scalpel, capable of precision and allowing for eventual opportunity for our county finances to heal. The state legislature would not do the surgery for us, though. It is up to us to have the courage to perform the surgery by picking up the scalpel and to help those that are critical of us for supposedly cutting the taxpayers with a sharp object. We have to help them understand that this act of increasing taxes, and albeit temporarily, is what will allow us to exit and close our pension system eventually. And this is absolutely a better option than it would be to go the other way. It would be fiscally irresponsible for me to prefer the grenade option simply to avoid the discomfort of having to pick up the scalpel and perform the surgery. So for this reason, I opt to vote to support the sales tax increase. It is actually what is best for the taxpayers, and I will be voting, still as a fiscal conservative, that this tax is actually the vote that takes integrity to support. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Alexander. Supervisor Logsdon.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. None of us want to be making this decision. Myself and my 17 peers here, this is a decision we don't want to be making, but it was put in our lap by our state legislator. Later, they took away their options for referendum. So, as a result, I want to make sure that the 55,000 members in my community were able to give an opinion, were able to talk to me, to talk to all of us regarding how they feel about this. So I held 2 town halls with another supervisor, plus I did a survey. Plus, if you look at my computer, the emails, my phone, it's been blowing up for the last couple of weeks. I tried to respond to everybody that called me. When I would call somebody back later in the day and I would say, hi, this is Supervisor Logsdon, I'm calling in response to you. You want to discuss the sales tax increase with me. And I'll say, what do you want to say? How do you feel? And I let them talk. Everybody has an opinion. Unfortunately, our peers years ago made a really bad decision when they made the decision to do the pension fund the way they did it. And unfortunately, we are now stuck with that. And we have to do something about it. So starting 2 years back, myself and my colleagues, we would go to Madison and we would talk to our legislators about what's going on and talking about shared revenue. That was our first option, trying to get shared revenue. We need something for Milwaukee County. We have been working diligently. The last 3 years, our taxes have gone down. When we worked on our budget, we actually got our taxes down for Milwaukee County. Maybe your property tax bill came in the mail and it's higher, it's because you're a municipality. It's not because of Milwaukee County. But we can no longer do this. We were up till midnight last year trying to save money. So now the state has listened. They heard us and they said, yes, we're gonna give you shared revenue and we're gonna give you an option to raise sales tax by 0.4%. It's not the best option in the world, but it's an option we have to look at. We have to be constituents of our stewards of our constituents' money. We have to think about what's going on. We have to think about what they will lose. They'll lose their bus service. We'll lose our senior centers. We'll lose all the mandated, there's a lot of mandated things. 88% of the monies that we're going to be brought in with the sales tax is mandated money. It's going to the sheriff's department, mental health, courts. Yes, Madison put stipulations on this. And I myself, I'm happy they put stipulations on this because I cannot vote for this without asking the county exec and people within administration. I want them to tell me they're going to be accountable. So years from now, I'm not going to hear my name and my colleagues' names stating that we did not do our homework. We didn't do our due diligence. 11 o'clock last night, I'm on the phone with our chairwoman, and I said, I can't vote for this unless I have some kind of something to show that the county will work with us, that the county exec will do everything in his power to take this money that we have an opportunity to use and use it for our constituents. That is why in this amendment, it says that our county exec is to provide a 24 recommended budget that reduces the overall property tax levy, increases funding for parks, transit, and other services countywide, provides a report in a manner provided under Wisconsin statute containing detailed information on the county's expenditure plan for the 0.4% sales tax revenue authorized in the ordinance. I wanted a plan. What I got out of my town halls from my constituents, they wanted accountability. I feel this gives us accountability, and I'll hold them by it. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Logsdon. Supervisor Cox-Young.
I was actually trying to outweigh Supervisor Taylor here because I know he's going to get up and speak. You know what, you want to go first? Okay, I'm here. Thank you. So here we are, right? As I was thinking on what to say this morning, I came across a quote from Dr. Maya Angelou, which reads, "If you're going to live, leave a legacy, make your mark on the world that cannot be erased." I did not come to this decision lightly, but I have to make the tough decision on long-term option to fiscal responsibility. Not only have I had people call, email, and text, but I have proactively reached out to a wide variety of folks in my district, whether it was homeowners, renters, riders who utilize our paratransit, as well as our Milwaukee County Transit Service, and who utilize social services. The people in my district rely on these services, and they need to survive. I close my eyes and envision my ancestors, and that would be my grandparents, the late Isaac Newton and Marcia Priscilla Cox. And my grandparents worked extremely hard to put the letter U in the word unity. This is the hardest decision that I've had to make while on this board. And in the words of my grandmother, Marsha Priscilla Cox, you cannot legislate the hearts, but you can legislate the laws. And as I've been doing my due diligence and reaching out to residents, I've spoken to Mr. Burt, who is 85 years old, who utilized our paratransit service to get to and from work, as well as to put appointments. I've spoke with Mr. Muhammad, who I see all over the city, and he utilized our Milwaukee County Transit Service. You see, my rhyme and reason here is that we've been waiting on some sort of kickback for the last 2 decades, and we have such a rich history of our Milwaukee County parks and our transit services. And so, let me tell you this. I will be voting yes. However, please note that I will be watching every dollar cent that will be coming to the departments and wanting to know how the money is being spent. And what I've heard from my colleagues today, Supervisor Miguel Martinez and Supervisor Logsdon, I think we already have us a crew and a task force who will be having countless conversations to ensure that our monies will be spent and will be held accountable, and there will be oversight on what we will be voting for today. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Cox Jones. Supervisor Taylor from the 17th, T2.
All right, here we go.
Yes.
Madam Chair, decorum.
Decorum, please.
Decorum.
And direct it towards the chair.
I wrote down some notes last night and then some more this morning. I rarely write anything down here, but I chose to. Problem is, I have a tough time reading my handwriting if it's more than 5 minutes ago, so we'll see how this goes. I want to talk about history, because I appreciate what many of my colleagues have stated today about how we got here, who was to blame. This is, generational changes. I do appreciate that, and I'll start with a date, 2008. The voters asked for a sales tax, and the chairwoman, she reminded me of that, and I actually blame Governor Doyle for that. He had both houses. He had the ability to sign the legislation, and we would have been, 15 years further along, and we wouldn't have $1 billion of deferred maintenance. We wouldn't have $500 million. So talk about a legacy. That's his legacy, and that's a fail. Now, the chairwoman, I would not use her name and fail in any way, shape, or form. I know how hard she worked this body over. I mentioned at finance that she had my ear for 4.5 hours on the golf course. She obviously was up at, with supervisors at 11 o'clock at night. I got the amendment very late at night to take a look at. But I do know how much effort she put in going back and forth to Madison. And remember, these are all part-time jobs, right? And she has to herd 17 others like we're cattle sometimes, right? And keep us in line. So I want to say that before I continue. But I do want to talk about history. I ran in 2012 the first time, and I did so because I looked at Franklin, Hales Corners, Oak Creek, and just saw the amount of money that we were shipping to the county and not getting a return on investment. So if you go back and you look at my literature, and I have some lying around, I'm sure, maybe hanging on a wall somewhere, talk about return on investment, which makes me think of where is my constituents, what do they invest now? What does Franklin and Oak Creek invest now? And I looked it up, and Franklin and Oak Creek are the top, in the top 5. They're 2 of the top 5 property tax, not sales tax, property tax paying municipalities currently. They're like 3 and 4. And in the last 10 years, Oak Creek has shipped to the county, to us, over $197 million. And Franklin has shipped to us, these bodies, over $189 million. And now, they're going to be asked to give more via sales tax. Now, out of that $197 million or $189 million, we don't get that money back. We don't get close to that money back. I know that there was an article written, and I know a paratransit, MCTS reached out to me in an email regarding paratransit and how my district it would be affected, and I think another handful of them as well. But buses, and that's because buses don't come into our district. We have great jobs in our business park. We have great businesses on the corner of 76 and Rawson, and their jobs and family sustained jobs, and people can't get there because buses don't get there. This .04, I don't see that changing. It maybe keeps the status quo, but it doesn't bring buses into my community further. And granted, there are some in my community that don't want buses in my community because of who that could bring to my community, and that makes me sick, that mindset still exists. And so during my first 6 years, return on investment was a big thing, and I worked towards that. But we also started talking about the unfair deal that Milwaukee County was getting. So we came up with the fair deal, and that was all about shared revenue. And in 2018, thanks to the former county executive, I had a little sabbatical. I was not here for a few years in that, 4 years, and there was a new supervisor the 9th. But after a 4-year break, redistricting took place, and politics happened, and somehow I was by myself, and no one else wanted to do it. So I chose to come back down here, and I did so. And I got to serve with, and I currently am serving with some of my friends, people that I served with from 2016 on, people that work in this building that I have a great deal of respect for, that work super hard. My first legislative Dave, Stefan, it's like family. So to be able to come back in this building and work with people that you respect and you like and you enjoy being with, that's what I missed in those 4 years. That and some of the debate, I suppose. But I also got to sit back and watch how this body operated, knowing that we were going to be fighting for this very moment. And what I've done in these 15 months is play constant defense. It's all I seem to do to try to stop one irresponsible spend after another. This bill, unfortunately, did not make any structural changes to how we spend money moving forward. I understand that there's a line in there that says you need 12 votes for new spending or new employees or something like that. God, we can get to 12 all the time, it seems. Like foolish referendums. That's the one good thing about this bill is we're not going to be able to put foolish referendums on there. But this body was able to get to foolish things. We still are going to have a county exec who I personally really like, with a veto pen that is unused, that just doesn't get used. This amendment, which I did co-sponsor, and I like what's in it, I really do. At the end of the day, the county exec is going to submit a budget. It does not have to follow this, and even if it does, this body can make changes, and we do it all the time. But I do like that this body is saying, hey, this is what we expect. So it would be smart for the exec to bring a budget that easily passes because of these bullet points on there, so I appreciate that. But unfortunately, I've sat here, I said I've watched spending galore. It's like, because there's no structural changes and because we're going to have more money available, it's like, remind me of giving your credit card to a kid and saying, just go in the candy store, and we're going to spend and spend and spend. So we have to represent, and then there's a couple issues that are still hanging out there that really irritate me, and one of them is the Milwaukee Brewers. Thankfully, the city of Milwaukee looks like they're kind of taking some initiatives to say, we don't want this either. But when you have the head of the MMAC going on record saying municipalities, which is Milwaukee, and county, which is us, not the other 4 that paid before, need to be a part of it, it makes me go back and look and say, we already are paying for the FISERV, $4 million a year that we all could spend on our residents, and the way that was done without any say. So if the state can say to us, you have to put this you have to vote on this yourself, the state can also say, just like they did with the FISERV, you don't get a vote. Because I think they know if it comes here, what would happen, or if it goes to Milwaukee, what would happen. So when you have the head of the MMAC, who also on the Brewers board of directors for the Parks District, that makes me nervous, because we didn't get shared revenue. Like, if we're sending $500 million more to the state than we're getting back, why couldn't they just given us $80 million so we didn't have to tax our residents and say the remaining $420, that's how we'll do this new formula with shared revenue? But they didn't. And so now you're asking our residents to pay more on top of what they already give. So at the end of the day, each one of us have to make a decision how we're going to sleep at night, and can we go back into our community, and what will they say? I don't care if they like how I vote one way or the other, because I got elected to make the tough decision. But we do have to represent our constituents, not money interest, not special interests. I've heard lists of organizations that have reached out. Yeah, I got those emails, but I wasn't getting those phone calls because there's no special interests that have been listed that are going to give me a check that we want to keep me around, because I'm the one saying let's not do these things. So at the end of the day, this body just hasn't earned my vote to get to yes. And that's why I will be voting no.
Thank you, Supervisor Taylor from the 17. And just want to clear up, this is not a part-time job. It is absolutely just part-time pay. Thank you. Supervisor Clancy.
I'm to rise to concur with that. But also to bring us back to some of the facts. It looks like the writing is on the wall. It looks like this will pass today. But we're doing so in the face of rhetoric which is just not accurate, right? We keep talking about closing senior centers, selling parks, cutting half of the bus routes. I don't know, I'm amazed that nobody's brought up like selling zebras at the zoo for their meat and having a zebra burger day. Like, these things are a half a decade in the future. Right now, for next year, we're looking at an $18 million structural deficit. That is significant, that is real. And for those of us who looked at the last item on the agenda, number 7, it showed that we had a $15.3 million surplus this year, which has gone up about $3 million every month since February. So the things, these terrible things that we're talking about, are 5 years away. Everybody in this room, I believe, values parks. Everybody in this room values senior centers. We value all these things that we're talking about, but we also need to be valuing not taking money out of the pockets of folks who need it the most when they need it the most. And that's ultimately what it comes down to for me, and why I remain a no. I do want to point out, too, that I'm very much in favor of replacing the Milwaukee County pension system with WRS. We could have done that 20 years ago. We could have done that 10 years ago. Last month, we could do that 3 months in the future. We don't have to wait for permission or to have it compelled to us by the state. So these are 2 separate issues which we're voting on together because Act 12 is making us do that. But yeah, it looks like the pressure, it looks like the vast amount of effort that did go into this worked. The sales tax will pass today, and it will outlive us all. This is not a temporary tax. This will be with us probably forever. I am grateful for that amendment that at least gives us some direction and at least acknowledges that we do value parks, that we do value transit, and I really hope that our next budget will finally reflect that.
Thank you, Supervisor Clancy. Just to ensure I didn't miss anybody while the plants, no? Mr. Clerk, because we've had a very robust conversation, can you just reiterate what is before us right now?
The question is, shall the item be adopted as amended, which is file 23-719, a resolution ordinance to amend Chapter 22, Sales and Use Taxes of Milwaukee County Code of General Ordinances to enact an additional 0.4% county sales tax county sales and use tax effective January 1st, 2024.
Mr. Clerk.
On the question, Supervisor Alexander.
Aye.
Burgellis. Aye. Clancy.
No.
Cox Jones.
Aye.
Gomez Tom. Aye. Johnson Jr.
Aye.
Logsdon.
Aye.
Martin.
Aye.
Martinez.
Aye.
Nicholson.
Aye.
Rolland.
Aye.
Shea.
Aye.
Staskunas.
Aye.
Sumner.
Aye.
Taylor District 17.
No.
Vincent.
Aye.
Wasserman. Madam Chairwoman.
No.
15 ayes, 3 noes.
This has been a very extensive debate. I've received communications. Folks need a chance to just stretch, go take a restroom break. Let's convene in 15 minutes, 1 p.m. I'm pounding the gavel. Supervisor Taylor, District 5, ask unanimous consent to recess for 15. See you in 1.
Madam Chairwoman, I know we're going on a recess, and I love my colleagues here. Am I going to hate me for this? As somebody on the opposing side, I'm receiving, can we have another vote?
Yeah, we can't hear you.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me? All right, as somebody on the opposing side, I'm asking for a revote, Madam Chairwoman.
Okay, a reconsideration of the vote. It didn't prevail. You weren't on the prevailing side. Let me just double check here. Right. Yeah, that understanding is correct. First Vice Chair Taylor, you are not on the prevailing side of the vote, so you cannot ask for reconsideration. My apologies. Supervisor Martin, are you ready for that recess? Okay, see you at 1.
It took to a yes. The rescinding took it to the yes.
Why didn't you just do it the first time? You make me sick.
Yeah.
So would I have had to say it? Like, to ask for a recount? No, because I would have had to say no.
Mom, no into a yes. What are you talking about?
It did?